Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Love lost for Labour. A drop in popularity for Starmer's cabinet as more than half think Britain's moving in the wrong direction.
As the government faces financial backlashes with increasing pressure from Conservatives to U-turns on cutting winter fuel payments, that's after it emerged Labour accepted large donations from the unions before agreeing to major pay deals.
Starmer can't catch a break as even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky puts the knife in, telling the world Britain's support is slowing down.
Stateside, Kamala Harris makes her final campaign stops in Pennsylvania before the Democratic National Convention starts tonight.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle depart Colombia, but the verdict's out on whether their public tour was a success.
And as King Charles looks to cut Prince Andrew's security for good, we're asking whether it's time the public stopped funding royal security.
Victims of domestic violence battle to have data protection laws tightened. That's after one woman was left exposed to her abuser. Kitty O'Brien will be joining us on Breakfast this morning to tell us her story.
And the nation bids farewell to one of the UK's only Stilton cheese creameries as Tuxford and Tebbot in Melton Mowbray closes for good.
As someone that doesn't like cheese and has never liked cheese. And in the sport, the champions Manchester City beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and Raheem Sterling's not happy being left out. The Oval Invincibles live up to their name in the 100, and Jack Draper plays the most controversial point tennis has ever seen.
Some sunshine around today, but it will be turning wet and windy from the west. Find out more with me later on.
It's just after 6 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Nana Akwe, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Speaking of cheese, you know what's often described as cheese is the moon? And I don't know if any of you spotted the supermoon this morning. It's going to be rising tonight, but it was, I have to say, looking spectacular. And I know there are lots of people who watch us and listen to us who are either coming in from night shifts or perhaps on the way to the airport, going off on their holidays, will have seen it. It was spectacular, huge, bright, low. It was absolutely breathtaking.
But what does it mean, though?
What does it mean?
It looks nice, doesn't it? It looks nice.
Exactly.
Oh, it looks ever so nice. That's what it means.
Yeah, well, we can get into the science of it. Let's look it up and report back. Yeah. I think it's just every now and then on our orbit, it gets closer or something.
And then when it
like
gets
that.
even bigger, that's a super duper moon.
That's a super duper moon.
Only happens every 5 years, the super duper moon.
Isn't it supposed to make you feel a bit fruity, the moon, when it changes every now
I
and again?
don't know. Yeah, well, definitely the werewolves and all that.
That's another moon altogether.
So anyway, if you saw it and if you were quick enough to get a picture, send it in. We'd love to see your photographs of the supermoon this morning. That would be super. At gbnews.com/your say.
Right, well, it has been a rough start to the week for the government, with a new poll, Ipsos poll, actually revealing a substantial drop in favourability for Labour following their landslide election victory in July.
Yes, 52% polled said that they think Britain is now moving in the wrong direction under Labour. Only 22% were in favour of the government's approach.
Oh, Sir Keir Starmer remains the most popular politician with a 38% favourability rating.
Angela Rayner at a close second with 33%.
And Rachel Reeves in third at 27%.
Well, all of this comes as the Conservative Party leadership hopefuls have put aside their differences and united against Rachel Reeves's winter fuel payment decision.
Well, joining us now in the studio is political correspondent for The Spectator, James Heal. Right, so let's talk about the backlash of this winter fuel idea, because we also noticed that potentially it will end up costing them more if pensioners then switch to pension credit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a poll done in the first month of a new Labour government, and Labour government elected one of the biggest majorities in history. And I think there's two real takeaways from this, one of which is Keir Starmer's personal ratings falling from +7 to 0. 0 is actually considered a good thing in British politics, and of course in his second month, Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister had -9, so that's good by that levels. More worrying, I think, perhaps for the Labour government is the fact that 52% of the country think they're on the wrong track. Now, obviously, they only won a majority with 38%, but the fact that they're not bringing the public with them on a very, very difficult 5-year journey, which takes involving things like the winter fuel payment allowance being taken away, I think is a real worry for them. And I think you can have 5 years of this, very difficult decisions, not much money left. I'll be particularly interested to see how Rachel Reeves' ratings change, given all those tax rises she's probably going to have to bring in.
And the optics of basically allowing OAPs to freeze, as some would see it, whilst giving public sector pay workers a pay rise is quite unpalatable, I think, in the current climate, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no surprise, obviously, that given the ongoing Conservative leadership race, all the contenders, all 6 of them, are now weighed in today and made this point. And the concern, I think, for Labour is, of course, that, you can look at the stats which show that 1 in 5 pensioners, because of land value, is now a millionaire. On the other hand, of course, there are a lot of pensioners, many millions probably, who are going to be suffering this winter and I think having to find an extra £400. So I think it's a juxtaposition of those two things, having these big payouts just at a time when ASLEF announced they're going on strike, that I think is going to be really alienating some people watching this right now.
Well, that's just one of them. I mean, let's talk about VAT on private schools. Meant to raise, I think it was 1.6 billion. The budget of schools is about 116 billion. That's a tiny drop in the ocean. It's not really working out, is it? Lots of schools, a couple of schools closing, and people putting their kids into the state sector.
Yeah, absolutely. And the danger, of course, with the popular tax rises, they tend to be popular for a reason, which they affect very few people. They don't raise that much money. This tax rise, I think, is going to actually not bring in as much as the Labour think it will. I'll be fascinated to see what the Treasury work out as, because 1.6 billion was the figure that Labour was toting. But as we all know, people are going to be moving their children from the private sector into the state sector, and that incurs a additional cost on the state sector.
Although Labour keep saying that the child population has actually decreased and that there is space within the system, so it is to be debated. But the one thing that always sticks out for me in this story is the fact that it is illegal in Europe or anywhere else to tax education. It's only thanks to Brexit that the Labour Party are able to do this. A Brexit freedom, but not a progressive move from a progressive party.
Yeah, absolutely. And a point of a tax on education, I think it's only been tried once or twice in Europe, once in Greece, and it didn't work out particularly well there. This, according to legal advice, is something that you couldn't do within the European Union, of course, with VAT rules, etc. So I'll be fascinated to see how it goes. I suspect it will end up with the worst of both worlds, which is that private schools end up closing, and actually kids in state sectors don't see the kind of benefits that they'd hope to get get from this policy.
Well, they're also going to introduce it, I think, in the January term, which is madness because you've already had one term, then you're going to.
Well, I think that it comes in formally from January, but they've said retroactively they will try and reclaim it from the date they announced it in the King's speech, as far as I'm aware, from lots of parents who are following it very closely. Let's talk about Ukraine, shall we? I suppose one of the sort of cornerstones of Starmer's prime ministership is security. He wants to be seen as, Mr. Security. That's his brand. But Zelensky has come out and said, you are weakening support for Ukraine, which will be not the image that he's wanting to put forward. But a number of successive defence secretaries have come out and agreed.
Yes, I mean, this is all about Storm Shadow missiles. And at a time, obviously, when Ukraine is making sort of big incursions into the Kursk region, really hitting back after 2.5 years, sort of on the back foot, defending their territory, this is Zelensky trying to up the pressure. He wants these missiles that can travel around 150 miles into Russian territory to kind of put Russia on the back foot here. The key thing, of course, is that 2 weeks ago, it looked as though Britain was going to be giving the green light to these missiles. Zelensky actually took to Twitter to welcome that move. The fact that they haven't actually been agreed, the fact that we need the French support for that because they are a UK-French project and because we're obviously going to need the White House to sign off on it, means that Zelensky is now getting very frustrated at a time, of course, when Ukraine is making real advances, when they're paying the blood penalty for all of this, putting their boys on the front line. There's going to be pressure for Keir Starmer, given his warm words about Ukraine, to kind of step up on this.
So that poll is making him look quite unpopular. A lot of people... What is the main thing that we're seeing within that poll? Give us a bit more detail on it.
Well, I think in terms of on Ukraine, obviously, about 3/4 of the public are still pretty resolutely behind Ukraine. The key thing, of course, is moving in a way which we keep within our existing red lines and get the White House on side as well.
OK, James Hill, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, should we turn our attention to the United States? Because this week, of course, tens of thousands of people are expected to travel to the city of Chicago for the 2024 Democratic National Convention.
Yes, 5,000 delegates and alternates are due to gather to approve a party platform. And Vice President Kamala and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will formally accept the party's nominations.
Well, let's cross over live to Washington, D.C. and speak to our US correspondent, Stephen Edgington, to get the latest on all of this. Good morning to you. This will be a bit of an unusual convention for the Democrats, where you've got the sitting president opening things rather than closing them. Just give us a sense of how unique this event will be.
I think this is a key test for the Democrats. They're officially choosing their new candidate, Kamala Harris. And this is unprecedented. There has been Democratic primaries or votes for their candidacy for the last, few decades. And this time around, Kamala Harris has not won any Democratic primaries. She's been installed as the candidate by essentially President Biden and Barack Obama. So this is a real key test for the Democrats. She's almost certainly going to get the candidacy. And she's also chosen her vice president nominee, Tim Walz. There's already been disruption at this convention, and it hasn't even started yet. Last night, pro-Palestine protesters disrupted some events, and the protests around the convention in Chicago have been very loud already. The convention opens today. Each day there's going to be a new theme. So today's theme, they're calling it For the People. On Tuesday, a bold vision for America's future. On Wednesday, a fight for our freedoms. And on Thursday, when Kamala Harris will take the stage, For Our Future. So it's going to be a very interesting 4 days for the Democratic Party.
So how is she doing? Because we hear that she's potentially ahead in some of the swing states. I mean, those are the states that could go either way.
She seems to be doing well in the polls recently. She's improved her personal opinion ratings. As soon as she announced her candidacy for the president, her opinion ratings kind of shot up across America. She was seen as a very unpopular vice president. She's seen as awkward, inauthentic by many Americans. However, she's received a major boost from many of the media companies out here who support her. They've all sort of said that she's given the Democratic Party a new lease of life, because I think many Democrats were concerned about Joe Biden, particularly after his poor debate performance against Donald Trump. They thought that, his chances of winning in November were pretty slim when he seemed to be getting old, and that was becoming very obvious for American voters. Now, replacing Joe Biden with Kamala Harris has given her a major boost, has given the Democrats a bit of a boost. But will it actually turn out to be an advantage ahead of November? That's the key question. And I think many Republicans are saying, no, it won't, because Kamala Harris, she is a weak candidate. Historically, she has been a weak candidate. She's been very she's very much struggled to win Democratic primaries. In 2020, I don't think she won any primaries, and she dropped out of the race pretty quickly until President Biden picked her as his VP nominee. So Kamala Harris, she hasn't done any media interviews in the last month. She seems to be avoiding that kind of scrutiny, and she hasn't agreed to the 3 debates that Donald Trump wants to do with her. So she's only agreed to 2. So she may struggle ahead of November, but I think this convention for her is a chance for her to lay out her key policies and to sort of introduce herself to the American people properly.
Yeah, a long way to go until November, as you say, but enjoying a huge poll surge at the moment. Stephen Eddington, thank you very much indeed.
Well, it's 13 minutes after 6 o'clock. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom. A new report from the Children's Commissioner has revealed a child is strip-searched every 14 hours, with police failing to record an appropriate adult in almost half of recent searches. The report reveals 3,368 strip searches of children between January 2018 and June 2023 in England and Wales, with 457 over the last 12 months of that period. And black children are 4 times more likely to be searched, a slight change from the period covering 2018 to 2022, when they were 6 times more likely.
New figures show the number of children treated for eating disorders has doubled in 8 years. Experts are warning more patients than ever are having to wait up to a year for treatment. In the past school year alone, almost 11,000 children were diagnosed by the NHS.
And legal advisors are reporting a rise in the number of people leaving money to their pets, with 1 in 8 inquiring about how to include pets in their will. That's after celebrities, including Oprah Winfrey and the late Karl Lagerfeld, started with this trend, with Lagerfeld, who passed away in 2019, leaving his beloved cat 1.2 million quid.
See, I love my cat, Hector, and I really do love him a lot. You know, he's the love of my life, I often say. Would I leave him everything? No. Would you?
Well, first of all, no, I can't bear cats. But he wouldn't know how to spend it. I mean, he wouldn't even know he's got it, would he?
And also, you know, fair enough if you want to leave money to a cat charity that does rescue work for children, for cats, fine. But to your own pet, I mean, it's a bit ridiculous. There are humans, you know, there is humanity in need of donations all over the place.
I wonder if he's got any kids. They must be, if he has, they'll be furious, wouldn't they?
My brother doesn't have any kids, and I found out from my mum recently that he plans to leave all his money to charity. Not that he's got lots of money, but whatever he has, rather than to my kids. What do you think about that?
Have a word with him. Have a word.
Controversial.
Charity begins at home.
Oh, dear. Right, let's talk about cheese, shall we? We started the programme talking about it, and it feels like a good moment to get into the Stilton, because cheesemakers are at risk of closing after the parent company announced it may stop production. This is of Stilton.
Now, Tuxford and Tebbit in Melton Mowbray have been making the specialty cheese since the 17th century. Gosh. But without a bar to take it over, it could lose imminently.
Well, our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, has the story from Leicestershire.
Stilton is one of Britain's best-loved foods. The salty cheese with blue centre can only be made in the East Midlands, but is exported around the world. Richard is head cheesemaker at Longclawson Dairy.
This has got a nice, even bluing radiating from the centre of the cheese all the way to the outside. It's got an open, flaky texture. This cheese will break down to make a superb Stilton.
Over 10 years, the number of Stilton makers has halved, with the market shrinking by 15%. In June, Danish food giant Arla announced a proposal to cease production at its site in Melton Mowbray. Tuxford and Tebbit is the last Stilton cheesemaker in the town, putting 60 jobs at risk. Melton MP Edward Arger says the loss would hurt the area.
First of all, the key priority must be to support the people who are affected by Arla's announcement, the employees here at Tuxford and Tebbit. Second thing is, Stilton is a fantastic product. We've got to keep championing it. We've got to recognise there are other amazing Stilton producers out there. We've got to get behind them. We've got to champion and be proud of this iconic British product.
Stilton is a speciality food. Many people only eat it at Christmas. But with rising costs and price, some are buying it even less.
Obviously, it is quite expensive, but we don't have it that often that we can't afford it.
Pretty much any time of the week, there is always Stilton at our home.
If we want to buy some for a special occasion, then we'll buy it.
As a protected food, Stilton can't be changed or made elsewhere, like champagne in France. Despite that, the king of English cheese is coming under threat.
These coats are developing really nice, and we've got this.
Bill Mathison is managing director at Long Clawson Dairy.
On a personal level, we're very positive about what's happening with Stilton. I think if you take an industry level, what we've been seeing is a decline in Stilton. Our mission as a business is to make sure that what we're doing is broadening out Stilton usage beyond the cheese board, because only 20% of households ever have a cheese board. So we're looking at putting it in burgers, so we've got burger mouths, we're putting it in snacking.
The complete disappearance of Stilton is unlikely. Yet every vanishing cheesemaker increases uncertainty. Will Hollis, GB News in Melton Mowbray.
I love Stilton.
Is it?
Stilton makes it says Christmas to me. Yeah, there's nothing sacred. You're right.
Cheese, a bit of wine.
Yeah, Stilton is just Christmas all over. So what would we do without it? This is the thing. Go out and buy some Stilton if you are that way inclined today, and support the cheese industry.
I know we were saying that very suspicious of people that don't like cheese. What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with Paul Coit? We're looking at you, Paul. Oh, really?
Ex, yeah, he didn't eat cheese
like
as well.
cheese.
I should have known.
Yeah, there's something not right if you're not into cheese. How can you not? Even if you don't like cheese, at least melted cheese. Anyway.
Mozzarella.
Yeah. Oh, well, is it the sort of weather for buffalo mozzarella? Let's find out. We've got Amy Bokota with your forecast this morning.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A change in the weather on Monday for many of us. Still dry across the far eastern parts, but there will be rain arriving from the west and it'll be turning windy. So the far southeast and eastern parts of England, still quite a dry and bright start to the day, but it's going to be cloudy and turning steadily wetter and windier as we head through the rest of Monday. Particularly going to be turning quite windy through the Irish Sea, gales arriving here through the afternoon, and we have a rain warning in force as well for parts of southwest Scotland. Under that cloud and rain, we're going to be seeing temperatures at best in the mid or high teens, but it will be still quite warm across southeast England. Heading through the rest of the day, we do still have some warm evening sunshine on offer for the southeast of England, but we already have some quite heavy showery rain moving into southwest England and to Wales as well. Very damp across Northern Ireland and north west England, and this is where we have the warning in force across southwest Scotland through this evening. Difficult driving conditions with that rain as well. A touch lighter across the northeast, but again it's going to be a damp evening for most with that strong wind as well. Through the rest of Monday evening, that rain's going to continue to sink south and eastwards as we head through the evening, and it will turn a little bit clearer from the west, but still with some blustery showers moving in as well. Rain may take a little while to clear across the southeast and the far northeast of Scotland, and with those cloudier conditions and that strong wind, temperatures will be more in the mid-teens, a little bit higher than we've seen the last couple of days. Then through the rest of Tuesday, it'll be bright, sunny spells, but also some heavy showers too, particularly for parts of central and northern England, and Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland will be seeing heavy, blustery showers as well, particularly windy across the far northwest of Scotland too. Temperatures here, again, in the mid or high teens and feeling quite cool, but the further southeast is still going to be feeling quite warm in that sun.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Oh, there's lots of you getting in touch on your say so far this morning. Kathy Swanson says that she uses Stilton in her gravy. This is for her homemade steak and kidney pie with flaky pastry, she hastens to add, roast potatoes and a medley of greens. Food for the gods. Oh, have you ever had Stilton in gravy?
Oh, that
sounds phenomenal. I know it's only 20 past.
What a way to ruin a good dinner.
Oh,
stick some cheese in your gravie.
What happened to you in your childhood?
What cheese have you had?
I have no idea.
You said Dairy Lee. I mean, that's...
Well, no, I haven't had that. I wouldn't even have that. But any cheese, there are people. I meet, every now and again, I meet someone who says, yeah, I don't like cheese.
Are you in a club of...
It's a little club of cheese haters.
Yeah,
you just can't bear it.
You
The smell of
my
it.
ex. My ex-ex.
There you go. Is that the reason of being your ex?
No, there's loads of other reasons.
OK,
Actually, no, we're very
cheese
good
was just a
friends.
very small part of the whole thing. OK.
But
At least it was part of it.
I should have known it cheese.
OK, yeah, I can't bear cheese. I actually do think there's something that goes back to my childhood.
I think there's definitely something happened that went wrong
I
along
think
the way.
I remember being... You remember in those... I don't even know where they have the trolleys. You know, where they have the little kid seat at the front. I can remember sitting in one of those and going past cheese counters in Sainsbury's and just going... smell.
Maybe one of the ladies, but have a bit of Dairy Lee or something, or one of the other.
You're obsessed with Dairy Lee.
Well, no, it's because he said that he used that as a benchmark to measure cheese.
Oh, OK.
And
That's not even cheese, is it?
But my son now doesn't eat cheese, and the thing is, if anybody, I say it's evil. So they say, well, look, keep away from the cheese. Cheesecake, cheesecloth, it's got cheese in the title. Cheese.
Oh, really?
I don't like cheese.
Do you not like pizza?
Now that's...
Oh, here we go.
There is...
He's not a true
another
cheese
conversation
hater.
altogether.
If it's
Some
melted,
pizza.
it's acceptable.
Yeah, but only sometimes with certain
you
pizza.
are
Because then if it congeals and it gets a bit lumpy... then...
Oh, my God, it's the texture, isn't it?
Whilst I've got you, Paul, just quickly, we'll come back to you in a minute properly, but will you be leaving all your money to your pets?
Have you got
Big debate this morning. Oh, yeah.
Would I leave my money to my
Nelly
pets?
and...
No, nonsense.
No.
Ridiculous.
What pets have you got?
I have 2 dogs. I have a rescue beagle and I have a cocker spaniel.
The good-looking ones, then?
Yeah, they are.
But they're the love of your life, but definitely the money's going to the children.
I think that'd probably be a good idea. I don't think my dogs would spend it wisely. And I have a feeling that maybe I may outlive the dogs. So we'll see.
Lots of you getting in touch on this. We'll read some of those a little bit later on in the programme. But perhaps if you wanted some money to be able to leave in your will, this is a good way with the Great British Giveaway.
Yes, there's 2 weeks left to get your entry into our £30,000 Great British Giveaway, the biggest prize we've given away ever. So what would you do with all that money? Well, here's the details that you need for your chance to win.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Still to come, Paul is here with all the sport lots for us this morning.
Premier League, Spurs are playing tonight against Leicester. And probably the most controversial... See, I think even Nana would enjoy this one. The most controversial points in tennis that there's ever been.
Oh, I like tennis.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's good.
So you give me 5 minutes.
You're in your tennis outfit, actually.
I am, actually.
Ready to go on centre court.
Ready to go. I love this. And my trainers and everything else. Well, anyway.
She's ready for some controversial tennis. We look forward to it. We'll be back with Paul after this.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Controversy howls around a proposal to transform an area of Nuremberg's half-built Nazi Congress Hall into a new opera house. Proponents argue that repurposing the site for cultural use could help to reclaim the space, while opponents believe that it risks glorifying Adolf Hitler. The issue reflects broader tensions in Germany over how to handle the archaeology and architecture of Nazism. To discuss this, I'm joined now by the Telegraph's chief opera critic and the former director of the BBC Proms, Sir Nicholas Kenyon. Lovely to see you back on GB News. As I understand it, they want to put a smallish opera house, I think about 800 seats, within the horseshoe shape. So you would have to walk through, as it were, this historical Nazi territory to get into the opera house. What do you think?
Well, the first thing to say, Michael, is that Nuremberg is such an important centre of German history. And so this site is going to be especially contested. You know, we've had the Nuremberg rallies after the war. We had the Nuremberg trials. Its history goes back centuries. I went there, but I went there to visit the birthplace of Albrecht Dürer. And, of course, as you would know, Wagner's Master Singers of Nuremberg is set there. So I think you've got so many things jostling. I feel absolutely certain in myself that buildings need to move on. They need to be repurposed, they need to be reinvented, but it's not for me to say what weight of tradition would fall on those people going in to a new building in the knowledge of what it used to be.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very odd, somebody not liking cheese,
No,
says Malcolm Dennis.
Honestly,
there are so many different cheeses, he says. Good point, Malcolm, but actually, we've got to stop giving you a hard time.
It's OK.
Whatever you're into, that's fine.
It's not that bad, is it really that weird?
It is quite bad.
It is, yeah.
Is it because I have met people that have gone, oh, that's so weird, I don't think our friendship could be
No,
the
it's
same again.
luckily I do really like you, so that's fine.
OK,
yeah.
fine.
Yes.
But there are... And then also, like I said, I've met people that don't eat cheese. Who was it? We had a guest in here recently who just went, you know what, I don't like cheese either. And it was a hug moment. It was just very moving.
You didn't
us
feel...
against the
you
world.
felt seen.
Yeah, there are people that don't like cheese.
Well, listen, I've just got to say what Pam says, because we're saying you wouldn't leave your money to your pet. But Pam actually points out the money is left to pets so they can be cared for after the owner's death, as vets, bills, etc. are extremely high. A friend left her dog to me in her will, and he had his own money for his care.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, that's good, yeah, because it's not very nice somebody forces the pet on you and you have to pay for it.
Oh, yeah, I always worry about what happens to pets after you die.
Yeah, me too.
Well, cats in particular, they go off and find somebody else to
They'll be fine. Yeah, Quitty, what have you got for us?
Right, so Chelsea lost at home to Manchester City 2-0 yesterday. Not a huge surprise. So Enzo Maresca is the new manager of Chelsea. Now, he's coming from Leicester, and he's never managed a Premier League team before, and he looks just like Pep Guardiola. I mean, if you look at him, you would just think it was Pep Guardiola.
Really?
They look exactly the same, and he worked for Pep Guardiola. But the thing is, whether he's as good as Pep Guardiola remains to be seen. So Chelsea have just got so many players. They've got 40 players that they have. He says that they want 30, and there's only 20 that could possibly be in a match day team.
Well, why does he want 40 players?
Well, they've got 40 because the thing is their owner, Todd Bowley, is just throwing money around like it's as if it's cheese. He's just throwing it all over the place. But the thing is, they can't seem to get a settled team. It's very early days, but they got rid of Mauricio Pochettino, who was the manager last time, who was just making things work for them. And then they get rid of him. And now they've started again. It's a very strange situation at Chelsea. But now, Raheem Sterling. Now, I know you're familiar with Raheem Sterling. Yeah. England's Raheem Sterling. Now, he was left out yesterday. And you would think that if you're left out of the side, you don't say anything. But these days in football, they have their people. So Raheem Sterling, his people, representatives, put up a statement. I mean, it's so bizarre. There's Raheem there. Raheem Sterling is contracted to Chelsea Football Club for the next 3 years. He returned to England 2 weeks early to conduct individual training and has had a positive pre-season under the new coach, which has developed a good working relationship with. OK, fine. He's committed as ever, but it goes on to say... And given his inclusion in the official club pre-match material this week. Our expectation was that Raheem would be involved in this weekend's fixture in some capacity, and he wasn't. And it's just like, you need your actual representatives.
Yeah, that's strange.
And it can't be a good thing to do, can it?
Brats, aren't they? A lot of them, they're overpaid sport brats, they haven't got a clue.
It is bizarre.
Not very clever, is it? You don't do that.
It's now gone to, Raheem's not saying, but his people are saying it. So it's whether he's going to stick around. I'd be surprised, because it doesn't look as if Maresca wants him in the squad. And if you're doing stuff like that, then I don't think that's going to do your case any good
I also think,
whatsoever.
actually, he may be making a point there, because he's a very good player. But they've got, if they've got 40, like a surplus, it's like when you go to a restaurant, they say, which table do you want? And then there's so many tables, you can't decide.
Yeah.
That's the issue they're having.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is, yeah.
Right,
and cheese is not on the menu at a restaurant either.
It's on your brain there.
Yeah.
We're not going to go for cheesy moments in tennis, but we are going to go for some of the most controversial.
Yeah, let's have a look at this. This is now Jack Draper. I'll explain it first. Jack Draper was playing in the Cincinnati Open. Jack Draper, British #1, against Felix Auger-Aliassime. Now, it got to match point, and Jack wins the point and then wins the match. Now, Felix, on the other side, is not very happy, because what had happened is that Jack Draper had hit a drop shot. It went down to the ground, and it was kind of like a half volley, hit the net, and then went over. And you think, now, what seems to be the problem? Now, the problem is that Felix said that the ball hit the ground after he'd hit it with his racket. So obviously you can't do that. It's almost like a table tennis serve. It's gone and bounced over. Now, the umpire didn't see it. He assumed that it was fine. Aliassime was really unhappy about it. Crowd were making some noise as well. And then Novak Djokovic has then gone onto social media saying there should be... I mean, we've got enough problems with VAR in football now, saying that in tennis there should be replays for the umpire, because everybody on TV saw it, but the only person that didn't was the umpire who needed to see it.
Who lost the point then?
So it ended up that Jack Draper won the point, and then he won the match because it was match point. Now, we have this. Have a little look and see what you think. Now, you can probably see the shot. Now, this is in Cincinnati, and we've got Jack Draper then, who then serves first. So hopefully we have this to see. I believe we do. Now, watch the replay. Now, the replay's going to come up there. Now, look at that. There's the ball. Now, it looks to me that it hits the ground and then hits his racket.
Oh, wait, I didn't see that.
It's really difficult. It's so difficult to be able to spot
that umpire now.
But the umpire now is saying, look, from what I saw, it looked OK. Look, here it is again. Here it is. Watch really closely. And for anybody on radio, the ball bounces up. It's like a half volley off the ground and then hits the racket.
Yeah, that 100% hit the ground.
So you think it hit the ground after it hit the racket?
I'm afraid...
Before.
Well, that should be OK.
Yeah, I think it
But they're saying that it hit the ball... actually hit the ground after it hit the racket.
No.
And this is what the controversy's all about.
No, dear. I saw it hit the ground, then come up, he hit it, and it went back over.
So you two are on VAR. We're absolutely fine.
Well, so even if you did have this review there, we still are having the same question. Even looking at it in the slow-mo, it's still not clear.
It's really difficult. It is really difficult to tell.
Match point. I think they should just have to do the point again.
But the craze... Well, actually, Jack Draper came out and said straight afterwards, oh, well, do you want to play the point again? Do you want to play the point again? And the umpire... Well, the umpire was very happy with it. And the thing is, it's never Jack Draper's fault, because the umpire is the one that decides. Although some say, actually, you should have said... But he said, well, I'm not really sure myself.
It's tough at the top, isn't it, in tennis? So, you know, you just got to go with the shots. And
absolutely. But anyway, he got knocked out anyway yesterday. Well, but he's our boy, so we wanted to win.
It's not good that he got knocked out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, against Holger Rune, he lost yesterday, so he's out anyway. But Novak's not happy about it.
Oh, right. All quite lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, stay with us. We have Chris Akabusi and Dawn Neeson going through what's making the news after this short break. See you in just a moment.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest across the UK. In Kent, the coastbound M20, a speed restriction due to Operation Brock. All freight traffic has to obviously go through that coned area. Junction 8 for the Leeds Castle and Maidstone Services Junction to Junction 9 Ashford. In Northamptonshire, the westbound A14, the road is now clear following the emergency repairs at Junction 13 for the A45. And in London, King's Cross, Caledonian Road South is closed due to emergency water mains work repairs. That's going to affect you near to Wharfdale Road. And in Hampshire, in Andover, the A303 westbound, the exit slip road to the A343 for Salisbury is closed due to an oil spillage and accident investigation work. That's going to affect you at the Middle Wallop turnoff at the moment, so just be aware of that. M6 through the West Midlands at the minute around Spaghetti Junction seems to be moving okay this morning for you from what you can see. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is a big old headache because we talk a lot about GP appointments, don't we? But certainly almost everyone I know struggles to see a dentist when they need one.
Yes. You know the best time to go to a dentist? When? 2:30. 2:30.
That's actually quite good. It's better than my gags.
The guy that went into Goa, to India, to get his dental treatment, is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, so tell us about that. I mean, this is how desperate people are to get treatment now. So what's the story?
OK, the story is a guy couldn't get an appointment at the NHS, so he went all the way to Goa in India to get his dental appointment. Now, I think he probably just wanted to go on holiday, and he thought, I know, why don't I go on holiday to Goa and then get my teeth done? Look, people are travelling in their droves. There's whole aeroplanes full of people with medical tourists. Like in Turkey, you get a whole aeroplane with people with hair implants and things like that.
Well, yeah. I was going to go to
turkey teeth, isn't it?
Turkey teeth.
Turkey teeth. Well, now we've got
that's when they strip the tooth down and you have these little pegs.
Yes, they strip them down, but in many cases they strip them down far too low, so the nerve is exposed and it gets infected, and it's exposed to the elements. So you get infection in the tooth, and then you have to essentially take them all off. But by then the infection spreads so far. I was getting my nails done the other day, which I don't do very often, and my nail technician said to me, "Is your dad still a dentist?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Please, can I have an emergency appointment? I went to Turkey and I got my teeth done, and now they look incredible, but I'm in so much pain. They're all infected." She had 15 taken out from the top and 12 from the bottom, and it's an absolute disaster. But this is what people are feeling like they have to do.
So medical tourism doesn't always work.
No, but it shows, doesn't it, Alex, that people can't get their teeth sorted here, so they go elsewhere. Listen, do you floss, by the way?
Don't floss. GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. At 6:38, we're going to take a look at the front pages of the newspapers that you're waking up to this morning, starting with The Times. Their big story today, there could be big payouts for workers contacted outside of working hours.
The Daily Mail says that half of Labour MPs have benefited from donations given by unions.
The Guardian's reporting on the Middle East. They say the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is joining 11th-hour talks to push through a Gaza ceasefire deal.
The Daily Express says that Tories united in support, at last united for once, for the winter fuel crusade.
And The Telegraph is leading on accusations that Labour has weakened support for Ukraine.
Well, joining us to go through what's making the news is Dawn Neeson and Chris Akabusi. Dawn Neeson, I want to start with you. Big payouts for workers contacted outside of office hours.
Yeah, this was promised, wasn't it? Labour promised it during their election campaign that if your boss phones you, bothers you, either by text, email or literally a phone call, when you finish work, they can be... you can claim against them, basically. You can take them into an industrial tribunal. However, the devil is in the detail with all of these things, and Labour have watered it down. This is to the Act is coming in September, but it's been watered down to say that it's the Employment Rights Bill, and it's been watered down. So it's like it doesn't apply to all companies, because there are some areas of work where you just can't do that. I mean, you would never get a national newspaper out, for example. You'd never get a TV channel out. If as soon as you clocked off, it's like your boss can't contact you. It was never going to happen. National Health Service, for example, as well. So the bill's been watered down. It now says, OK, terms and conditions apply to certain businesses, and we're going to set guidelines for companies. It's not going to be a hard and fast rule. And the bottom line is you won't probably be able to take your company to an industrial tribunal just for this alone. It would have to come on top of other conditions as well. But if this is part of your claim against your company, it can bump your payout up by 25%. But it'd be interesting to see whether it actually happens.
That doesn't work. It's not
in real life, it doesn't work.
Do you think, though, there is a debate, Chris, about the right to switch off? Because we have this huge problem post-COVID of people not wanting to go back into the workplace and people saying, I don't want to sell my soul again men. They know what full-time employment is like in this country. We're kind of becoming more American, aren't we, where people work round the clock. I mean, looking at you, Dawn, never stop working. All weekend as well. You know, is there a debate to be had about trying to make work more appealing so that we can get the economy back up and running? Or is this just basically a disaster from a business's point of view and will not be good for the economy?
I mean, I think your point, even I know you're joking about Dawn. If you're self-employed, you work all hours of God's sense, and there is no clocking on, clocking off. There's 23. So you're actually talking about people that are working in sort of confined organisations where they have a 9 to 5. I think that sort of job is slowly but surely getting less and less. So yeah, you can have the debate, but if you're working alongside somebody in your company that will go the extra mile, that is going to be available 24/7, you will find yourself losing out on a promotion ladder, etc., etc.
Yeah,
so,
good point.
You know, I think the sort of in the end,
it feels like old school, old-fashioned practices, a bit like sort of some of the things offered within the unions, like for example, all that the Spanish working rules and stuff like that. It's just old hat. It doesn't fit into today's modern day kind of 24/7 gig.
It doesn't. And Labour's thing was all about growth. We're going to grow the economy. Well, you're not going to do it like this. It's one of the things that's not going to work. And my old boss, he used to phone me at like 4 or 5 in the morning on a Sunday morning, and it's like, what? It's like, and that was part of the course. You know, it's a national newspaper. This is going to happen. So I couldn't imagine saying, I'm sorry, don't start until 9. Put the phone down. It's just not going to happen.
Let's talk about Starmer and Ukraine, Chris. This is the Telegraph's lead this morning. Zelensky, not the only one who's complaining about our role, saying that we're slowing down our support, but now a number of British former defence secretaries also agreeing with him.
Yeah, look, I was looking at this, and the piece says Turkey has upheld a Conservative ban on using UK-made Storm Shadow strikes to strike targets in deep Russia. So actually, when they say he's slowing down, he's still holding on to the ban that the Conservatives set themselves. Now, Zelensky is talking about long-range missiles and getting into Russian territory, and we need to be able to attack the supply chains. You know, my concern is that slowly but surely we are ramping up our involvement with Ukraine against Russia.
We're seeing our tanks being used, aren't we?
Precisely. So there's no boots on the ground, and then, go on.
Well, what's the point of giving them all of this stuff with all these sort of limits with it? I mean, either we want them to fight or we don't. And Vladimir Putin doesn't appear to have any rules, so I think they just have to get on with it now, surely.
Well, OK, how far are you prepared to go? So you're right, the Defence Secretary is talking about appeasement, we can't appease Putin. But how far are you prepared to go? Are you prepared for boots on the ground? Are you prepared for your sons and your daughters to eventually go across and fight this war?
Well, not particularly, no. That's why I think that actually the fact that he's now attacking Russian soil might suddenly be a wake-up call to the Russian people who will not support what Vladimir Putin is doing. I mean, in one of the previous wars, it was the mothers who ended the war. So I think this is the beginning for the Russian people to go, hold on a minute, what are we doing?
So do you think Putin really worries about the Russian mothers?
No, I don't think he worries about that, but I think that the optics are now not looking so good for Vladimir Putin, so I think the people may not be supporting him. I mean, you know what happened with the troops. When they captured the troops, they were just young boys who didn't really know what was going on, and... You know.
Look. There are arguments both sides. I am concerned that slowly but surely we are ratcheting up the law of diminishing returns. You think that you're safe, and then also you're not. You do know that we've got UK installations in Estonia. My fear is that one day we wake up with a skirmish on the border and something happens in Estonia, and before you know it, Article 5 is ratcheted up, and we are now at war with Russia. If that's what you want, crack on.
Well, we've been at war with Russia, you could say that from the start.
Well, exactly, but Chris and I were talking about... I mean, Chris has obviously served in the military. You've got a young lad now of the age that would be sent out. I mean, it is... And the way Chris was explaining it, you were terrifying me. I don't need that on a Monday morning. Thanks, Chris. But I think think, you know, there is a genuine fear now that it is ratcheting up, and, you know, Estonia is part of the United Nations, so it's like it is getting a bit scary. But we're caught in this stalemate now, and like you, Nana, I saw that story at the weekend about those young lads that were conscripts. All the commanders had done a runner, so all the people in charge. There were the young lads sitting there. There's one little boy, I mean, he was supposedly 18, but he looked about 12, in a Rolling Stones T-shirt, and I'm going, these kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be there doing this.
They don't know what's going on.
No.
And one of them was saying, well, they all look like us, so we don't know who to shoot.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
It was terrifying stuff. And the way Chris explained it, as someone who served in the military and with a lad of the age that could, in theory, be sent to serve, I mean, that was chilling.
It won't be Ben Wallace. It won't be Sir Ben Wallace's kid that goes out to defend.
Yeah. Oh, no.
It will be mine. It will be yours.
Or Keir Starmer's kids. They're not going to go there, are they?
Yeah.
No.
So, you know, really, we do need to have a proper discussion about this, not being led by these people who are slowly but surely sending us down the road. But are we, the British people, prepared to sacrifice our boys and girls on that anvil over there? And if we are, then crack on. But let's have this discussion.
But surely allowing them to use these missiles as, you know, that will actually help Ukraine to destabilise Russia a little bit more, and then maybe that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Russian people have been kind of told a different story.
Yeah, but that was when we were told when we had anti-tank and mortar fire missiles. We were told, yeah, you know, all we need is to be able to stop all this rain of stuff that coming across us, and we can deal with it. Then we can reclaim our territories. But month upon month, it's escalating. It's just escalating. Where does it end?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a good question.
Dawn, let's look at this story on the front of the Telegraph about the Misogyny Law and how this could be, in some quarters, there are concerns it could be a risk to free speech. Tell us more about what the law is designed to stop.
This story originated at the weekend, and it's about misogyny now being defined as potentially terrorism, the same as we have our laws governing against our, the far right and Islamists. And the extreme misogyny will now be lumped together under this, and you are meant to be reporting anyone that exhibits extreme misogynistic views. So that, in theory, could, if you've got a young lad in school and the teacher could hear him say something that sounds extremely misogynistic, reporting him to Prevent, which is the anti-terrorist, stop people getting too radicalised in whatever area they're getting radicalised. But there's so many questions with this, isn't there? It's like, how do you define what is extreme misogyny? I mean, if we're talking about sexually assaulting and violence against women, we already have laws for that. So what is extreme misogyny? No one, Yvette Cooper, has come up with this, couldn't define it herself at the weekend. And where does it limit free speech? It's like, I think the phrase she used was unpalatable beliefs or something or other. And it's like, well, what? How do you do? Are you now going to govern my thoughts? You know, I might think something, I'm not going to act on it.
Yeah, but then how do you tackle the problem of this rise of this toxic masculinity, where we're seeing an increase in sexual assaults? 1 in 14 school-age girls saying that they've been touched when they haven't wanted to be, and the rise of the kind of awful rhetoric that these young boys are being indoctrinated in by the Tates of this world. What is the solution if it's not this?
Well, it's not an overnight solution, for a start. I don't think it's a legal law laid. I've once said before, and I got cancelled on an NHS contract because of it, that the challenge that we have today is what I call the defenestration of masculine power. And by that, what I mean is that young men growing up today have not had a masculine role model or enough masculine role models to show them right from wrong and how to constrain their power and to be polite to women. And maybe women don't want that anymore. I mean, maybe in this egalitarian society, we don't want men to be... Chivalry is it dead? Is that something?
I love that. If somebody opens the door, I can't stand it if they're not.
It's not. I think it's much more sinister than a lack of chivalry or an expression of chivalry.
Sorry, I've gone on a tangent.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that if you don't get a lad when he's growing up, you say the Jesuit, she said, the child is the father of the man. Give me the child, and I'll give you the man. And the idea was that you needed to train that young kid in the way he should go. go. I'm talking about the masculine now. And so if you don't have masculine authority, showing that guy, we often go, I'm a bloke, look how I treat my wife and my sister. If they don't learn it from that, then when they get to 14, 24 and they get the masculine power, they don't know how to constrain themselves.
And then they've got the likes of Andrew Tate. But isn't there still... I mean, within this prevent strategy, there is something called incel, which is... and it refers to the male subculture and includes violent feelings towards women.
Involuntary celibate,
rejected. So this thing is already covered within the prevent strategy anyway. So why do we need something extra?
I agree with Isabel. We do need to do something. I'm just not entirely sure this is the answer to it. I mean, Chris, you know, we need strong male models who aren't Andrew Tate, because his view of being a strong man is completely the opposite of what a strong man actually is. So you need strong male, but how do you start doing that?
And the scary thing is that teachers are reporting that boys who are coming from outwardly normal homes with a positive father figure are also now displaying these toxic values that they're seeing on the internet.
I think
it's infectious.
I think that's the thing, and I think a lot of it is online porn. We have to keep coming back to that, and it's not like the porn we remember when we were kids, Chris, where you got top shelf magazines with a bit of boob and bottom. This is like hardcore stuff where no respect for women whatsoever.
Exactly. I think that's
women are just pieces of meat.
Women are there for male gratification and usually in huge amounts of pain, I would imagine. And that needs to be addressed, and no one ever talks about it. And you know, boys are seeing that from a very young age.
Well, no, I'm just thinking that, but all these boys have got mums. I mean, no, they haven't all got mums. I didn't have mums, so you can say. But you know, you'd think that you'd learn. You've got a mum, you've got a sister, you've got an auntie, that you would actually learn how to
respect women.
From.
Common decency.
It's almost like a desensitisation. They're being desensitised, even though they have a good role model around them. But that space is then filled. That void is then suddenly filled with people like Andrew Tate. So really, I think they need to be taking people like Andrew Tate to task, actually, rather than...
Well, also the social media platforms. A lot of these kids say that the algorithms are pushing stuff at them that they didn't want anyway. Because that's how they make their revenue.
I think the state need to get out of the family and let dad get on with it and stop, you know... We need fathers, we need dads, we need people who grab hold of their sons and say, mate, that's not how you do it. Right when they're early, right when they're young, and teach them how to go.
But there's a group think, isn't there, with men, you know, like there's a camaraderie and all that sort of thing. They do what they don't want to appear different.
The locker room chat.
Well, you get that, but in my day, that was on a sports field. That was having a ruck in the playground. That wasn't beating up women. Other blokes would give you a slap if you were beating up a woman. What's that all about?
I
mean, I know you're not allowed to put your hands on people, so I'm not advocating putting your hands on children.
But you'd stick up for a woman.
You're not going to happen in the playground.
I was going to say, well, should we move on quickly? But we've only got 40 seconds. I don't think we've got time to tuck into some of the other big issues.
They're all big stories.
I want to ask you about cheese. Do you like cheese?
Oh, yes, good idea.
Yeah, I heard that story.
What is wrong with pork?
I love cheese.
Well, I was considering quitting as husband material, OK? Apart from that, as a Spurs fan.
And
but
married.
Now, well, apart from that. But it doesn't like cheese.
It's not normal.
I mean, it's not normal, Chris. I mean, it's not normal.
But Stilton.
And put Philadelphia.
I have a feeling you don't like Stilton, am I right?
No, love it. You ask my kids, stinky cheese, the old man, check him out.
Dawn and Chris, thank you very much. Let's get an update with your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A change in the weather on Monday for many of us. Still dry across far eastern parts, but there will be rain arriving from the west and it'll be turning windy. So the far southeast and eastern parts of England, still quite a dry and bright start to the day, but it's going to be cloudy and turning steadily wetter and windier as we head through the rest of Monday. Particularly going to be turning quite windy through the Irish Sea, gales arriving here through the afternoon, and we have a rain warning in force as well for parts of southwest Scotland. Under that cloud and rain, we're going to be seeing temperatures at best in the mid or high teens, but it will be still quite warm across southeast England. Heading through the rest of the day, we do still have some warm evening sunshine on offer for the southeast of England, but we already have some quite heavy showery rain moving into southwest England and to Wales as well. Very damp across Northern Ireland and north west England, and this is where we have the warning in force across southwest Scotland through this evening. Difficult driving conditions with that rain as well. A touch lighter across the northeast, but again, it's going to be a damp evening for most with that strong wind as well. Through the rest of Monday evening, that rain's going to continue to sink south and eastwards as we head through the evening, and it will turn a little bit clearer from the west, but still with some blustery showers moving in as well. Rain may take a little while to clear across the southeast and the far northeast of Scotland, and with those cloudier conditions and that strong wind, temperatures will be more in the mid-teens, a little bit higher than we've seen the last couple of days. Then through the rest of Tuesday, it'll be bright, sunny spells, but also some heavy showers too, particularly for parts of central and northern England, and Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland will be seeing heavy, blustery showers as well, particularly windy across the far northwest of Scotland too. Temperatures here, again, in the mid or high teens and feeling quite cool, but the further southeast is still going to be feeling quite warm in that sun.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK. In Leicestershire this Monday morning, the southbound M1 is queuing due to an earlier accident. That's between junction 22 at Colville and junction 21 for the M69 for Leicester. The coastbound M20 in Kent, that speed restriction due to Operation Brock. That's going to affect you, of course, from junction 8 for Leeds Castle and Maidstone services to junction 9 at Ashford. And in St John's Wood in London, Wellington Road, the A41, that's blocked at the minute. Delays there due to an accident from Grove End Road. That's going to affect you. And also as well in King's Cross in London, Caledonian Road is closed due to the emergency water mains work repairs around Wharfdale Road as well. That will affect you. And in Tyne and Wear, the Western Bypass, the A1 northbound, a lane closed due to a broken down vehicle near to the Angel of the North this morning. That will affect you there. Across the UK, you're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. Love lost for Labour. A drop in popularity for Starmer's cabinet as more than half think Britain is moving in the wrong direction.
Well, as the government faces financial backlash with increasing pressure from Conservatives to U-turn on cutting winter fuel payments, that's after it emerged Labour accepted large donations from unions before agreeing to major pay deals.
Starmer can't catch a break as even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky puts the knife in, telling the world Britain's support is slowing down.
Stateside, Kamala Harris makes her final campaign stops in Pennsylvania before the Democratic National Convention, which begins tonight with President Biden.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle depart Colombia, but the verdict is out as to whether their public tour was a success.
And as King Charles looks to cut Prince Andrew's security for good, we're asking whether it's time the public stopped funding royal security altogether.
Victims of domestic violence battle to have data protection laws tightened. That's after one woman was left exposed to her abuser. Kitty O'Brien joins Breakfast this morning to share her story.
And in the sport, Manchester City beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and Raheem Sterling's people aren't happy about him being left out, and I shouldn't think Raheem's too happy about it either. In cricket, the Oval Invincibles live up to their name by winning the 100, and Novak Djokovic, don't do it, Novak, calls for VAR in tennis.
Some sunshine around today, but it will be turning wet and windy from the west. Find out more with me later on.
It's just after 7 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Nana Akwe, and this is GB News Breakfast.
So we start this hour with some breaking news, and we're hearing in the last few moments that Operation Early Dawn has just been triggered. This is a plan that's put in place by the government to avoid overcrowding in prisons and follows the recent surge in arrests and sentencings following the riots. This is a comment that's come in from the Prisons and Probation Minister, Lord Timpson. Many of you will be familiar with him from the Timpson's chain of key cutters. He says, "We inherited a justice system in crisis and exposed to shocks. As a result, we've been forced into making difficult but necessary decisions to keep it operating." And he goes on to say that the pressure being felt in some of the countries will now mean that Operation Early Dawn has had to be enacted. Let's get the thoughts this morning of James Heal about this and all of the politics of the day, because it has been an interesting few days, hasn't it, James? But first of all, what do you make of this? It's been a difficult start, first few weeks of Starmer's premiership to deal with this. Do you think that this will go down in history as a good call for him?
I think his hand's been forced, really. He has no real choice. I think, look, he came in from day one and he said, the prisons are in a worse state than we thought. There's obviously been a lot of reports done on this. I think he'll be fine. I don't think there's any kind of political backlash from this, because really, it's true, the Conservatives had 14 years in charge of the prison service and it is in a real mess right now. So I think the government are just following sort of existing standard operating procedure on this. The key thing, of course, then comes in things like, early release and all of that. So there's debates to be had around that. But right now, I think Lord Timpson knows the situation very well and he's just doing what he has to do.
Well, it can't have helped with all these rioters being put in jail, like the poor little woman who retweeted something and people who said hurty-feeling words on social media.
Equally, I think that the government had to restore law and order. And I think if you look at polls, actually, 2/3 of the public, I believe, support what Keir Starmer did in the handling of that. So I think that was the kind of medium-sized test he needed as a Prime Minister. It was something where the authority of the state was on the line. He had to act quickly. And he handled that really well. I think the key thing, of course, is how do you do this over the next 5-10 years and rebuild the prison system?
But the point there, though, is that the other prisoners who are probably far worse are being released. That's the worry.
I think obviously it's about getting things balanced. You obviously have to restore the authority of the state at that point. You can't have incitement or anything like that. And I'll wait to see the kind of sentencing when that's done. But right now, these are kind of longer-term issues. The fact we haven't built enough prisons, the fact that we actually haven't dealt with the kind of sentencing requirements. I think all these things are going to be looked at in the coming future.
Interesting, though, you talk about his hand being forced and how else could he have handled it, but the public don't seem to be too impressed with the way the country's doing at the moment. According to this latest Ipsos poll, 52% saying that we're moving in the wrong direction under Labour, only 22% in favour of the government's approach. And they say he's the most popular politician still, with a 38% favourability rating. Angela Rayner at a close second at 33%. Rachel Reeves in third at 27%. So what do you make of their polling, given the sort of direction of travel?
So politics is about choices. And I think in terms of the justice issue, his hand was forced and that didn't really have a choice. What he did have a choice on were these pay deals. And I think in politics, juxtaposition can kill you. Having two stories at once is what really defines you in politics. And I think that having the winter fuel allowance, for instance, being scrapped at the same time as awarding kind of these big pay rises, 5.5% for some sectors and 15% for others, I think that's going to be the thing that really kind of comes and defines Labour, because that's the thing people are going to be saying, hang on a sec, the danger is you come in and you talk the talk on kind of the national interest, you talk about kind of being a government for all, and yet the danger, the perception is, you look at, for instance, Labour's payments from the unions, they therefore get perceived by opponents as being a factional party, a party of the interests of people who vote for them, rather than seeking to represent the country. And at a time, of course, when you've got to take the whole country on a big, long journey for the next 5 years, the fact that 52% of the public think they're going in the wrong direction is a real warning shot.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the unions. One of the things they were looking to do is remove the minimum service requirement if the people go on strike. I mean, that's not the right direction, especially now we're seeing what's happening. Everyone's asking for a pay rise.
Yeah, and I think what really kind of makes Labour makes a mockery of kind of Labour's claims to have a special relationship with the unions was what happened with ASLEF last week, which is that they'd had this settlement going up over a number of different years, and then 48 hours later, they then go on strike now for a separate issue on the LNER line, but it just puts Labour's competence on the line, and the danger is you have more strikes over the next 5 years, and every time Labour says we're going to have this deal because we need to save taxpayers' money, you then have more strikes, and that, I think, obviously is the thing that's traditionally done for Labour government.
Yeah, and it looks as though they're being played, doesn't it, by the unions, but they're obviously in hock with the unions, and I think it was the Sun newspaper yesterday saying that the public purse is being used as a government cash point at this point, and, you know, at the expense potentially of OAPs, and it seems to have united. Perhaps there's something positive in all of this. It seems to have united the six Tory leadership. They found something that they all agree on, and that is that this is a bad policy as far as they're concerned.
Yeah, and they're talking about things, for instance, you know, Robert Jeremy mentions the hypocrisy point, which is that Keir Starmer raised this at PMQs in May of this year and suggested the Tory was going to get rid of it, and now he's done that himself. Priti Patel calls it shameless. James Cleverly suggests she doesn't have a democratic mandate. I disagree on that, but I think the point is that they can see which way their vote is going, they can see it's an unpopular policy, and for me the more interesting thing is that the Liberal Democrats have come out as well against this, and they tend to be a party that knows which way the wind is blowing.
Well, you've also got the VAT on private schools. That's not popular. Nowhere else in Europe it's allowed.
I think that this is the key thing, is that it's very easy from opposition to kind of sort of point fingers. It's the danger is in government you have to make difficult choices, and where are the money going to come from?
You don't have to make that choice. I don't accept that argument about the private schools. They haven't gone after private health. They've gone after
they've chosen to do that. Yes. That is a choice they've chosen to do, and I think the danger of them is that it's not actually going to work.
Well, no, it's not working by the looks of things. A couple of schools closing down, people moving their kids to the state sector. It's hardly going to raise the money that they're expecting.
Or standards, ultimately. At the end of the day, is it going to actually improve education? Well, that's debatable.
6,500 teachers, they're saying, over the Parliament, which is 0.03 of a teacher for every school.
I do think there's an interesting point in all of this, though, just as we are talking about private schools, is that actually it could be the unions that end up being the ones that object to this policy, because a number of teachers, I know that in the private sector, they've all been told that their pay is being frozen, and if schools close, they will lose their jobs. You know, is this actually going to be in the benefit of school teachers in the long term? What will the unions say about it, and what sort of challenge and dilemma will that pose for Labour? Just before we say goodbye to you, James, we've got to talk about Zelensky and Ukraine. I think Starmer's very much built his brand on trying to be, you know, stability, security, but he's been accused, you know, quite damning criticism from Zelensky of slowing down support for Ukraine, and Zelensky's been backed up by a number of previous defence secretaries here, not health secretaries.
Yes, yes, he has. I think that it's going to be something to watch over the coming months. Look, you've obviously got the Ukrainians with one eye on what happens in the winter. The Russian winter is going to be approaching, and also what happens in America. They want to try and get as much of land as they can before that, get as many bargaining chips on the table, and I think it's going to be a real impetus and a pressure from people like, you know, former Conservative defence secretaries and others to try and sort of get them over the line on that. So I think that it's going to be something to watch in the future. Obviously, Keir Starmer tried to make a huge thing about Labour being the party of national security and defence after the Corbyn years. The key thing, of course, is what does Washington think in all of this. So I think that the danger for Starmer is making promises he can't keep and also trying to keep all his base together.
It's a tough job being Prime Minister.
Somebody's got to do it.
Not for me.
James,
Not for me.
thank you very much. I'd do it. I'd be more
yeah, OK. Well, look, someone who wants to do it in the United States, of course, is Kamala Harris, and this week thousands are expected to travel to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention.
Now, 5,000 delegates and alternates are due to gather to approve the party's game plan for the election, and Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will formally accept their leadership nominations ahead of November's crucial vote.
Well, earlier we spoke to our US political correspondent Steve Erdington, who reported to us from Washington, D.C.
The Democratic Convention opens today with the theme of For the People. The next few days will be the chance for the Democrats to choose officially their presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, and her vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz. This is a key test for Harris. She's going to lay out her plans for America, to the American people, properly introducing herself on the national stage ahead of the election in November. This is an opportunity for Harris to really take control of the media narrative over the next few days. She's already enjoyed an opinion poll bump since announcing her candidacy for the Democratic Party. Many in the Democrats breathed a sigh of relief when President Joe Biden decided not to run for the president again in November. And many see Kamala Harris as a new lease of life, a younger candidate with a bit more charisma than President Biden. Already the DNC has been marred by protests from pro-Palestine protesters last night. An event was disrupted by protesters. The convention, which is being held in Chicago, has already seen major pro-Palestine protests happen. And throughout the next 3 days, we will expect many more protests to continue. Kamala Harris has already started talking about various policies for her presidency if she wins in November, including a $6,000 child tax credit and a sort of help to buy scheme for first-time buyers, which would help them with about $25,000 of government funding. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has accused Kamala Harris of being communistic. She has announced a kind of price control policy to try and tackle inflation. And this has been a major problem under the Biden-Harris administration, where food prices have risen by 21%. And many Americans blame President Biden and Vice President Harris for this incredible rise in inflation on basic goods like food and groceries. So this week really is an opportunity for Harris to try and tackle some of her weak spots, not just inflation, but also immigration. She was appointed in 2021 as President Biden's so-called border czar. That's certainly what was reported at the time, though the Democrats are trying to reverse on that language at the moment. And under the Biden-Harris administration, millions of illegal migrants have entered the United States through their southern border with Mexico. And this is another major weakness that Harris faces that she must address ahead of November. So these are the major issues that the candidate will be talking about. The next few days, we will see more of Harris. We'll be introduced to her on the sort of national stage, and she will set out her major pitch for the candidacy ahead of November on Wednesday, when she accepts the nomination with a major speech.
That was Sir Steve Edgington earlier today.
Right, the time is 7:13. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making headlines this morning. And a new report from the Children's Commissioner has revealed a child is strip-searched every 14 hours, with police failing to record an appropriate adult in almost half of recent searches. The report reveals 3,368 strip searches of children between January 2018 and June 2023 in England and Wales, with 457 over the last 12 months of that period. Black children are 4 times more likely to be searched, and a slight change from the period covering 2018 to 22, when they were 6 times more likely.
Wow. Well, new figures show the number of children treated for eating disorders has doubled in 8 years. Experts are warning more patients than ever are having to wait up to a year for treatment. In the past school year alone, almost 11,000 children were diagnosed by the NHS.
And legal advisors are reporting a rise in the number of people leaving money to their pets, with 1 in 8 inquiring about how to include pets in their will. That's after celebrities, including Oprah Winfrey and the late Karl Lagerfeld, started the trend, with Lagerfeld, who passed away in 2019, leaving his beloved cat £1.2 million.
Right, well, cats, money, you wouldn't give your
I don't know
cat money.
how much he left in his will to other causes. I imagine someone like Karl Lagerfeld just had so many millions that 1.2 was a small percentage. I think it's a bit odd if people leave everything to their pet, which is, at the end of the day, just an animal, and there are people starving in the world.
Yeah, I mean, think of what he could do potentially with that 1.2 million instead of just giving it to a cat.
But equally, if you are you know, in your dotage and you're worried about what's going to happen to your companion once you've passed away, I can understand that you'd leave a little fund for somebody to pay for their care after you've gone. That's a responsible, nice thing to do.
That's probably chump change for him anyway, wasn't it? As you said, it's nothing to him.
Exactly, yeah. So anyway, would you be tempted to leave everything to your pet, or do you think that's a bit ridiculous? Let us know your thoughts on that this morning. It got quite a few people talking last time we talked about that. It's gbnews.com/your say.
Right, let's get an update with your weather from Amy Okota.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A change in the weather on Monday for many of us. Still dry across far eastern parts, but there will be rain arriving from the west and it'll be turning windy. So the far southeast and eastern parts of England, still quite a dry and bright start to the day, but it's going to be cloudy and turning steadily wetter and windier as we head through the rest of Monday. Particularly going to be turning quite windy through the Irish Sea, gales arriving here through the afternoon, and we have a rain warning in force as well for parts of southwest Scotland. Under that cloud and rain, we're going to be seeing temperatures at best in the mid or high teens, but it will be still quite warm across southeast England. Heading through the rest of the day, we do still have some warm evening sunshine on offer for the southeast of England, but we already have some quite heavy showery rain moving into southwest England and to Wales as well. Very damp across Northern Ireland and north west England, and this is where we have the warning in force across southwest Scotland through this evening. Difficult driving conditions with that rain as well. A touch lighter across the northeast, but again it's going to be a damp evening for most with that strong wind as well. Through the rest of Monday evening, that rain's going to continue to sink south and eastwards as we head through the evening, and it will turn a little bit clearer from the west, but still with some blustery showers moving in as well. Rain may take a little while to clear across the southeast and the far northeast of Scotland, and with those cloudier conditions and that strong wind, temperatures will be more in the mid-teens, a little bit higher than we've seen the last couple of days. Then through the rest of Tuesday, it'll be bright, sunny spells, but also some heavy showers too, particularly for parts of central and northern England, and Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland will be seeing heavy, blustery showers as well, particularly windy across the far northwest of Scotland too. Temperatures here, again, are in the mid or high teens and feeling quite cool, but the further southeast is still going to be feeling quite warm in that sun.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I love your say. I love it when people get in touch. Michaela said, just an animal. Tut, tut, Isabel. I mean, don't get me wrong, I adore Hector and I will definitely leave provision for my little cat, and he's a very, very integral part of our family, but you know, there are sentient beings like humans that need financial support. Jeff Coop says, leave it to your cat or dog or burn it in a field. It's a slippery slope when people want to dictate to others what they can spend their money on. Their money, their choice. Absolutely don't disagree. But I do think it is a bit odd to leave £1.2 million to a cat.
I think it's craziness. Kathy says, with regard to James from The Spectator, she said, James from The Spectator was a great guest this morning. Very informative. Glad you enjoyed it.
He's delightful, James. I've always liked James. Yeah.
Now, Eileen points out, because we were talking about the fact that the jails are full and there's been a breaking news story on it. Eileen says people need to know who is being given a get-out-of-jail-free card and what crimes they've committed. I suspect it won't have anything to do with posting nasty tweets.
I think that will be the next story, won't it? And exactly who these people are who are being released. But obviously, this Prisons Minister, Mr Timpson, is very much into rehabilitation, and I'm sure they'll be trying, because they'll be aware of this conversation, to choose those prisoners who have the sorts of crimes that are sort of fraud or white-collar criminals.
I don't think they're that organised.
Let's see.
They're not that organised. I don't think they are. Hatter says, disgraceful Prime Minister and party already. This is obviously referring to Keir Starmer. And Jones says, our government, regardless of who's in, gives too much money of our money away with international aid, net zero. Instead of sorting out our own issues, we can't afford it. Yeah.
Well, keep your thoughts coming in. We love to hear from you. We'll try and reflect as many of those as we can. gbnews.com/your say.
Right now, though, there's 2 weeks left to get your entry into the 30,000 Great British giveaway. It is the biggest prize we've given away so far this year. What would you do with the extra cash?
Well, you could leave it to your cat.
Absolutely. Here are the details that you need for that chance.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GB News Great British giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am, having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Oh, you won't believe it. She's been showing me cat videos that she's actually slow-mode. Who's got time for that? Seriously.
Not you. Underwhelmed. Underwhelmed is Nana. We've got a kitten in the family, so, you know, when they jump, it's like 10 times their actual height. It was quite impressive, but I won't waste my videos on you again, Nana.
Oh.
Message received.
No, it's very thoughtful.
Still to come, as the King moves to reduce Prince Andrew's security, we're asking this morning whether or not we should actually be paying for any royal security at all. Let us know your thoughts, and we'll be debating that after this.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I love it. Your say's gone absolutely crazy, hasn't it? It's a light this morning. My auntie, says Sadie L., who never had kids, was supposed to leave my grandma's inheritance to her nieces and nephews. One of my cousins got all of the money in the will because she said she'd look after the dog. When she died, the cousin pocketed the money and put the dog down.
Oh, that's terrible.
I think if you inherit money, you have to respect the wishes of the person who has given you this money. Otherwise...
Well, Jill points this out, actually. Jill says, if you genuinely love your animal, don't leave them money. Surely you'd want somebody looking after them for the right reasons, someone who's going to love them, not for the money. If you could prepay for whole life pet medical insurance, that would put your mind at rest.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Jonathan Little says, when you die, you should be leaving your cat to somebody special, not making them a source of jealousy or battles. And that's absolutely right. I think if, you know, children get overlooked in favour of an animal, it's just going to create animosity, isn't it? It's this big celebrity trend.
Well, a good point on that. John says, explain what happens when cats dies unless it makes a will. You've given it all this money, then it passes away. Who gets the money?
Yeah. Good question. Who gets the money? Right, we're going to talk about the Duke of York now, because King Charles has decided to axe his security team. This is according to reports that emerged over the weekend.
Prince Andrew's security has been funded privately by Charles after he lost his publicly funded police protection in 2022.
But is it time that we actually stop paying for royal security full stop? Is it right that taxpayers fund the security of everyone from Queen Camilla to Prince William?
Well, joining us now is royal journalist Sarah Robertson.
Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Morning.
What do you make of all of this? Because there's lots of commentary that perhaps Prince Andrew having his security removed is sort of a first step towards trying to get him out of Royal Lodge, because he needs all of this security for his 90-acre estate in Windsor.
Yes, well, I mean, that's what King Charles is hoping to try and do, is to sort of try and subtly strong-arm him out of Royal Lodge and into another property, which happens to be Harry and Meghan's old house, Frogmore Cottage, on the estate. But Prince Andrew is going nowhere so far. He's resisting, shall we say, any attempts by the King to actually go of his own accord. He says he signed a lease. He says the lease is cast iron, and that's where he's staying. So the King says, OK, you know, he's taken away his security. He believes he doesn't need to have this round-the-clock 24-hour protection, which Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, right now does have. And this is part as well of the King sort of stripping back. So the only security really that the taxpayer should be paying for, the King believes, is just himself, Queen Camilla, and the Prince and Princess of Wales, because obviously they are the heirs apparent, and that's how it will be. Other working royals do get security paid for them when they are working. So Princess Anne doesn't get security round the clock privately, but when she is working, and she is the most hard-working royal, as we all know, she then does benefit from security when she's actually on an official working visit. But the other royal members of the royal family, you know, as I say, the Prince and Princess of Wales, the King and Queen, they do receive 24/7 security, as they should, because given the nature, the high profile of their roles and the inherent risk that does carry, and you can't always guarantee that people aren't going to have malign intent. And we've seen obviously with the Queen, when people broke into Buckingham Palace and Trude ended up in the Queen's bedroom. I'm not quite sure what happened with the security there, but nevertheless, you know, they are at risk by the very nature of who they are and the huge role that they carry around the world.
But they are billionaires, aren't they? I mean, they could afford... Isn't Prince William a billionaire? He could afford his own security. Is there a legitimate question about whether or not the British taxpayer should be... But the only reason I ask is because, you know, you look at what Harry and Meghan are up to. They've just been to Colombia, presumably footed the bill themselves, or maybe Colombia did.
I think Colombia invited them.
OK.
They didn't pay for that. They need to keep their coffers. They've got so much legal action going on. So,
I would just like to say on that note, Isabel and Anna, they ended up, well, Prince Harry, shall I say, ended up costing us, the taxpayer, over $1 million in Home Office legal fees with that silly case that he brought, demanding that we do pay for police protection for him. So, I mean, he's not a good example. But in terms of what they cost us, look, the actual figure in terms of their security, never gets disclosed, as I say, and that is for their protection, and that's a decision that the Home Office has taken. But if a rough estimate is believed to be around between about £1.50 to maybe up to £50 per year per taxpayer, but that is not official figures. That's just speculated figures. So I just want to really sort of reiterate that is speculated. But do they deserve it? Yes, of course they do. It's the king, and they generate, I mean, 80% of the income that they generate goes back into our coffers, goes back into the treasury, and then they're paid a sovereign grant out of that. They also have paid income tax since the 90s. So we can't begrudge them, given the mammoth role, the fact that King Charles is our head of state. And we are in a constitutional monarchy. We cannot begrudge them this. It's of vital importance. Do people begrudge that the Prime Minister has security 24/7?
A little.
No. Do they? Well, maybe depending on it.
A little bit.
What your preferences are. But I think we have to be realistic about this. The King himself and Prince William and Princess Catherine, they do deserve to have security. It's of utmost paramount.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say.
I know what you mean.
Importance.
Importance, yeah.
They are protected at all times. It really is.
Sarah Robertson, thanks very much indeed for your views this morning. It's interesting, there's a couple of views on here this morning. How about axing all security for ex-Prime Ministers too then, says Tony, and that has already had 4 likes on your say. So there is a debate to be had about the levels of security that we all have to pay for, given how much we're paying in tax.
Exactly. I think ex-Prime Ministers, I don't think they should get full-time security. I don't think so. But what do you think? GBNews.com/your say coming up. Paul Coit.
I'll be Poyle to you, yes.
Poyle.
Yes. Shall I tell you what's going on?
Yes, please.
Raheem Sterling, you know what? His people are not happy that he wasn't chosen to play for Chelsea yesterday. Chelsea got so many players, but his people put out a statement about it's very bizarre, and also the most controversial point in tennis. We'll have another look at that as well.
Yes, please.
Right, that's coming up. Stay tuned. This is GB News Breakfast.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK. In Leicestershire, the southbound M1, that's moving a lot better following the earlier accident. Junction 22 at Colville to Junction 21 for the M69 at Leicester. In Kent, the coastbound M20, a speed restriction in place because of Operation Brock. Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. In Lancashire, the westbound M55, that's slow due to an earlier vehicle fire. Junction 3 at Kirkham to Junction 4 at Blackpool, that's going to affect you. And also as well, we've got ongoing issues, I'm afraid, in London, of course, at Plaistow on Barking Road. We've got it blocked due to an accident. That's going to affect you there between Central Park Road and Selsdon Road as well, as you'd imagine. Traffic's looking quite heavy. And in London, St John's Wood Road, Wellington Road is blocked due to an accident around Queen's Grove at the minute too. Europe Today.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have said Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, good morning. Now it's time to go through the latest sports news with Paul Coit, who joins us now. Paul Coit, good morning.
Good morning, Nana. Pep Guardiola and Enzo Maresca, are they the same person?
They look very similar.
They do look very similar.
Been to the same school of footballing.
Yeah, the same school of footballing and same school of looking. Have a look at these two.
Oh, good.
See, Enzo, there we are.
Oh,
Look at
yes.
that. Look
Oh, my God.
crying out loud. I mean, they know each other, and Enzo Maresca worked for Pep Guardiola. I don't know whether Pep actually looks at him and thinks, you're copying everything I do, even my look.
Which one's which?
That's Pep on the left, and that's
black.
Enzo on the right. Or actually, is that Enzo on the left and Pep on the right? It's so difficult to be able to tell. But there we are. They've got a very similar look. But their teams are not really similar yet. You've got Pep Guardiola, 18 trophies now with Manchester City. Enzo Maresca's been brought in by Chelsea. They're going to roll the dice again. See, the thing is, they never give anybody time. It's every time they get a new manager in and think, right, it's a project, we're going to take time, and then they get panicky, fire them, and then try another one, and then it starts again. He's got too many players, and one of those players, which is too many... Oh, by the way, Manchester City beat them 2-0 yesterday. But one of the players that is probably surplus to requirements is Raheem Sterling.
Oh, right.
Now, Raheem Sterling, of course, huge star Raheem Sterling. There's Raheem, and he was left out yesterday. OK, that's no big deal. Player gets left out of the side, but he wasn't only left out of the side, he was actually left out of the whole starting squad, which is 20, and he's had his representatives put a statement out. I don't know whether he's had that or the representatives have done it. It just seems like a bizarre thing to do at the start of the season. There's a quote that says how hard he's been working, and then it says, and given his inclusion in the official club pre-match material this week, our expectation was that Raheem would be involved in this weekend's fixture in some capacity. As a camp, we've always had positive dialogue and insurance from Chelsea FC in relation to Raheem's future at the club. It's really bizarre. It's like gone out to the public, and we're looking at this thinking, why? Surely you just send this to Chelsea, but it is a bit bizarre. And if Raheem Sterling wants to stay at Chelsea, this is probably not the right way of doing it. It does kind of like rile the manager a little, don't you think?
So this is extremely unusual.
Well, I think it is. I think we'll probably see more of it because the bigger stars that players are and the more people they have in their entourage and they're more brands than they are footballers now, is that's what's been put out and saying, well, we're very surprised as a team that Raheem's been left out. So I don't think Raheem's got much time left at Chelsea, to be honest with you.
Do you think he cares?
No, I think
if you're doing that, if you're doing that, you don't care, do you?
No, I think he does because I think probably you've got a player in the middle of it and you've got their people there. They're probably saying, this is what we want to do. We'll put out a statement and this will be good for you. And often players are in the middle of this maelstrom of agents and managers and they go, OK, fair enough. If you think that's the right thing, PR person will say that's the right thing to do. But it is a bit of a bizarre thing to do. So Maresca hasn't said whether he's going to stick around at Chelsea. He hasn't said... He's just said, I've got all these players, I'd like all of them, but I can't have all of them because I've got 40 and I need to narrow it down to 30. So it's just who's going to go and who's going to stay.
Well, maybe Raheem Sterling will be on the list.
I think so. So there's going to be players that are going to be looking out, or teams that are going to be looking out now for thinking, well, maybe he's the guy. Maybe we should bring him in.
Yeah, well, have a word with his people if that's what they want to do.
Well, get his people to talk to their people and have the people talk to each other.
Tell us about tennis, because there's been a pretty I don't know how you'd describe it. A sort of controversial decision, but it's going ahead.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's something that's already happened. It was Jack Draper played on Saturday, and I know we're a bit previous on this because it happened back on Saturday, and already Jack Draper in the Cincinnati Open's been knocked out. But this is the game he played against Felix Auger-Aliassime from Canada. Now, there was a shot that was made, and I've looked at it really closely, and now I've decided that it does actually come off his racket, hits the ground and bounces over, which is obviously an illegal shot because you can't hit the racket, hit the ground and on your side and then it bounces over the net. So anyway, this was for match point for his game. He won the match. Have a look at it anyway, and then we'll talk about all the problems that have surrounded it. Now, it's difficult to see there from that distance. Now we'll have a look a little bit closer. He's saying, look, I didn't notice anything. Now, it comes off the racket. It's actually off the rim of the racket, and it bounces down and then bounces high up and goes up over the net to win the point.
See, I think I've seen this 4 times now, and I'm none the wiser. And that answers the whole question for me about whether VAR is the solution. We've watched this in slow-mo, we still don't know, so it's clearly not the answer.
No, exactly right, because the umpire was watching it. He doesn't have any VAR or any video replay to watch back. During the commentary, they can look at that and go, actually, you know, that looks a little bit dodgy. He's happy, he's unhappy.
Here it comes again.
Look, what have we got? It's sort of just off the rim, it's off the edge of the racket. And see, look at the strange bounce. It bounces down and then bounces
it goes around the rim and then goes up and off.
Exactly.
But that's not illegal because it bounces once.
No, because
it doesn't bounce again then.
I think what's happened is that it bounces as it's everybody's talking about. It comes down, bounces off the bottom of the racket.
And then you think it goes back down again.
On his own side and then goes back over. So anyway, it was match point, but Novak Djokovic has now said referees and umpires need to have video assistance.
No, even watching it, you can't work
Exactly, unless they can ultra slow-mo it, but yeah, OK.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Let us know what you think, VAR in tennis or not. gbnews.com/your say.
Right, still to come, we'll be going through all of that, loads more. This is GB News Breakfast.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We got an incredible story this week of a young teenager who has raised more than £5,000 for charity.
13-year-old, just 13 years old, Cameron Hutchison cycled the West Highland Way with his dad, Colin, in just 25 hours, raising money for international food charity Mary's Meals. And the 96-mile route took Cameron and Colin to the foot of Ben Nevis.
Wow. Now, the organisation provides daily school meals to more than 2.4 million children in countries such as Syria, Haiti and Malawi.
We are delighted to be joined now by cyclist and fundraiser Cameron Hutchison. Cameron, it's so lovely to have you here. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well.
Well, we're very impressed to have you. We are honoured to have you. First of all, do you like cycling?
Yeah, it's one of my favourite sports, so yeah, I just wanted to do that.
What kind of bike did you do that enormous distance in? Did you have a special bike? Was it adapted?
Well, it was my cross-country bike that I just normally use for cross-country races. So, yeah.
Wow.
You can actually see it on the screen there with the blue handlebars. That's the bike I was using.
We can, and quite a route you went on as well. So, Cameron, you're 13 years old. When did you start cycling?
I've sort of been cycling my whole life. So I got a little red balance bike when I was maybe 3 or 2, maybe. And then I kind of just got bigger bikes as I went on.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're going to take a look at some of the front pages this morning. A quick look at them. The Times leading on the news that there could be a big payout for workers contacted out of hours.
The Daily Mail says half of Labour MPs have benefited from donations given by unions.
Guardian is reporting on the Middle East as the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken joins what they call 11th hour talks to push through a Gaza ceasefire deal.
The Daily Express says that Tories united at last in support of winter fuel crusade.
And here's the Telegraph. It's leading on accusations that Labour has weakened support for the Ukraine. But we're going to start this hour with Chris Akabusi and Dawn Neeson. Looking, Chris, at the Express front page, which is an unusual sight. All six of the hopefuls to take over the Tory party united on something. What are they all in union about?
Yeah, an easy one as far as I'm concerned. United against supporting the Ferrari for the pensioners who've had the winter fuel allowance taken away. You know, Rishi Sunak did warn us that Labour were going to take taxes. Well, they didn't really take taxes. What they've done is just taken away your benefits. And in this case, it's from our... well, I'm pensioned myself from 66.
No. Unbelievable.
I love it, you guys.
But can I just say, almost you've fallen into a trap here because you're the sort of person that Labour would argue doesn't need this allowance. Yeah. And there are plenty of wealthy pensioners who were benefiting from this policy at the expense of taxpayers.
Yeah.
1 in 5, I think, pensioners own property over £1 million now.
Yeah, but why can't there be something...
means testing?
No, but why can't there be some benefit that you get irrespective of what your situation is? There's some
Do you think you need it?
You deserve it.
A benefit? To help
I don't need the winter fuel allowance, but I do need my pension. Yeah, I do need my pension.
Oh, I'm not talking about that.
No.
Yeah.
But this is the problem. Back to the story. The problem is there's a lady in the paper, for example. She gets £854 pension. She got a small work pension from the NHS, which means that she loses £200 a month for a winter fuel allowance. She can't survive. She will be deciding between heating and eating. She's bought herself already a werewolf blanket so she can move her. Now, she's 68. She's donated 50 years of her life working in GB PLC with the social contract and promise that when she gets to 65, 68, she'll be looked after. And now the Labour government said, oh, you know when we said we were going to be this change? Well, the change for you is you're going to be worse off, my dear.
Well, Keir Starmer did say he's not going to tax working people.
Ah, yes.
So here we go.
Be careful. Read between the lines on that one. You knew what was coming, didn't you? But at the same time, the sheer hypocrisy of ministers actually charging taxpayers expenses to heat their own homes. And, you know, because of the pension, the way this is set up, the heating thing, pensioners on £11,500 a year, that's when the pension credit kicks in, can have their fuel allowance taken away. They might, as you point out, Isabel, if they're living in London South East or places like Cheshire, they might be living in homes that are worth over £1 million on paper, but that's not cash.
No, exactly.
And you try selling those homes as well.
Yeah. Precisely.
You know, they could be on £11,500 a year and they're having that taken away from them.
Yeah,
I think it's outrageous.
Some of those homes, it takes so much to get back up to some sort. If you lived in a house for 30 or 40 years, and somebody else living in that, and you might have to invest. If you've got £1 million, you might 50 grand, 60 grand to get it back in order. To buy.
Well, there'll be lots of people watching this morning or listening on the radio who this will affect. Get in touch, tell us your stories, give us your reaction. All 6 of the Tory leadership candidates absolutely demand a U-turn on this winter fuel payment plan by Labour. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/.
Well, it might end up costing them more money anyway if people go for the pension credit. I think that's the issue here. They will lose about potentially £4 billion.
Yeah, well, 850,000 eligible pensioners do not currently claim pension credit. So if I was those pensioners now, I'd be getting those forms filled in.
Dawn, should we talk about Lilibet? According to the Duchess of Sussex, the 3-year-old princess has found her voice and has been very much encouraged by her mother.
Yeah, now this is the Duchess of Sussex talking on her last day of the semi-royal tour of Colombia, talking about women and empowerment. Look, I fully back Meghan and I fully back any woman on this issue, but she's talking about how she's encouraged Princess Lilibet, who's 3, to find her voice. Now, she's not talking about Lilibet just stringing sentences together and looking at little kids' books. She's talking about being a feminist. She's 3. Look, I support bringing your daughters up to be strong women and to sort of like have their voices and speak out for themselves. But at 3, I mean, come on. I mean, it's and to be fair, she does have a point. She says it's also down to men like my husband, Harry, to help empower women as well. And going back to the conversation we were having at the first part of this news review about misogyny and extremism, I think that's important. I think men have a lot to do here to empower women and educate their sons about how women, as you were saying earlier, Chris, should be treated. So while it's very easy to roll your eyes at Meghan saying Lilibet's found her voice, she's 3, she's an ardent feminist, of course she is, love. The message is actually important. It is about empowering women.
Well, it's difficult to take her seriously, though, especially the lack of compassion they've showed towards the rest of their family. So even when I hear these things, I think, yeah, that's really lovely. That's a great idea. Now, how about you go and see your sick dad who's dying? And how about you take your grandchildren who are being deprived of seeing their own grandparents, and in particular, meeting the Queen, Queen Elizabeth, our late Queen. I would be so angry when I grew up to hear that my parents did not allow me to meet the rest of the British royal family. I'd just be furious.
I suppose the point is, isn't it, that whatever point the Duchess of Sussex makes, even if it's valid, it will just not go down well. It will not be well received. Is that pretty much what the papers are doing here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't like to get involved in the story because there are people involved here, and Meghan and Harry went away to get out of the limelight, and yet we've still...
They're on tour. Yeah.
Colombia.
Yeah, so I just don't want to get involved with it. You know, off you go, enjoy yourself, live your life. You're wealthy people, living your life your way. None of my business.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, let's go to a story that you've chosen then, Chris, and this is that police cannot make arrests if jails are full of rioters, and this is according to the POA, the Prison Officers Association chief.
Yeah, so obviously this is in the recent weeks and months because of the riots sparked off by the the northwest. Now, all of a sudden, our cells are... Well, first of all, the police cell is overfilled. And what the police are saying is that they can't take somebody to court unless there is a prison place available for them. And so we've got to start rethinking this. What are we actually doing here? Are we letting out legitimate hardcore criminals for people who've had a naughty day in the sun? Now, I'm not justifying all the riots that went on, but you know, this is something we've got to start thinking about because it can't go on. What happens if you had mass insurrection? Where are you going to put them? Now, what I did think while reading this was, OK, we found places for people, the immigrants who are coming across. Could you put the rioters in a less secure but less secure facility like a disused army barracks rather than incarcerating them at Her Majesty's service?
Or in police cells, apparently, or they'll be bailed.
But the police cells are already jammed up, as I say. At the moment now, the police cells can't cope with any more.
But aren't a lot of the migrants in these other places that you're suggesting? What about the Bibi Stockholm? I think they left that, didn't they?
Yeah, Bibi Stockholm.
That's free at the moment. Yeah.
Well, so go on, so you go on, you crack.
I was going to say, no. This is Operation Early Dawn, isn't it, where the jail system is now so completely full that we have got no room. And the fact that it's been triggered today means that defendants waiting for court appearances will be held in police cells, or court dates will be delayed or adjourned completely, which, as we know, things going through the courts, unless the rioters don't happen very fast. But the government says that this also applies to people involved in the riots. So that means that, you know, the woman given that they won't be let out of jail... so basically, people let out of jail early. Violent crime, terrorists, etc., but also rioters. So does that mean that woman who was sentenced 15 months won't be let out of jail?
Yeah, good question.
Good question.
Dawn, Neeson, Chris Akabusi, thank you very much.
Yeah, time now to get a check on what your Monday weather's going to be up to for you and whether or not it will be another glorious August week. Here's Amy Bukote with all the details.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A change in the weather on Monday for many of us. Still dry across the far eastern parts, but there will be rain arriving from the west and it'll be turning windy. So the far southeast and eastern parts of England, still quite a dry and bright start to the day, but it's going to be cloudy and turning steadily wetter and windier as we head through the rest of Monday. Particularly going to be turning quite windy through the Irish Sea, gales arriving here through the afternoon, and we have a rain warning in force as well for parts of southwest Scotland. Under that cloud and rain, we're going to be seeing temperatures at best in the mid or high teens, but it will be still quite warm across southeast England. Heading through the rest of the day, we do still have some warm evening sunshine on offer for the southeast of England, but we already have some quite heavy showery rain moving into southwest England and to Wales as well. Very damp across Northern Ireland and north west England, and this is where we have the warning in force across southwest Scotland through this evening. Difficult driving conditions with that rain as well. A touch lighter across the northeast, but again it's going to be a damp evening for most with that strong wind as well. Through the rest of Monday evening, that rain's going to continue to sink south and eastwards as we head through the evening, and it will turn a little bit clearer from the west, but still with some blustery showers moving in as well. Rain may take a little while to clear across the southeast and the far northeast of Scotland, and with those cloudier conditions and that strong wind, temperatures will be more in the mid-teens, a little bit higher than we've seen the last couple of days. Then through the rest of Tuesday, it'll be bright, sunny spells, but also some heavy showers too, particularly for parts of central and northern England. And Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland will be seeing heavy, blustery showers as well, particularly windy across the far northwest of Scotland too. Temperatures here, again, in the mid or high teens and feeling quite cool, but the further southeast is still going to be feeling quite warm in that sun.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for you Monday morning. In Kent, the coastbound M20, that's obviously got that speed restriction on it due to Operation Brock. Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. In Lancashire, the M55 westbound now clear following that earlier vehicle fire that was affecting your Junction 3 at Kirkham to Junction 4 at Blackpool. And in Staffordshire, the northbound M6, one lane is closed due to emergency repairs. Junction 12 at Gailey to Junction 13 for Stafford South. Currently in St John's Wood in London, Wellington Road, the A41 closed due to an accident from Queen's Grove to Circus Road, and in Tyne Weir, the northbound western bypass, the A1, there's a lane closed there due to a broken down vehicle. Junction 77 for the Kenton Bar roundabout to Junction 79 for Gosforth Park. That will affect you there this morning, and as you'd imagine, traffic's looking particularly slow too because of that. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GB News Great British giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am, having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very good morning to you. Love lost for Labour. A drop in popularity for Starmer's cabinet as more than half think Britain's moving in the wrong direction.
As the government faces backlash over their bid to cut winter fuel payments.
Operation Early Dawn launches today as an emergency measure to tackle overcrowding in prisons.
Starmer can't catch a break as even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky puts the knife in, telling the world Britain's support is slowly down.
Stateside, Kamala Harris makes her final campaign stops in Pennsylvania before the Democratic National Convention, which starts tonight.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle depart Colombia, but the verdict is out as to whether their public tour was a success.
And victims of domestic violence battle to have data protection laws tightened. That's after one woman was left exposed to her abuser. Kitty O'Brien will be joining us in the studio to share her story.
And in the sport, Manchester City beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and Raheem Sterling's people aren't happy about him being left out, and I don't think Raheem's too happy earlier either, but we haven't heard from him. In cricket, the Oval Invincibles lived up to their name by winning the 100, and I'm a completely neutral sports broadcaster. Newly promoted Leicester City play the likely Premier League champions Tottenham Hotspur tonight.
Some sunshine around today, but it will be turning wet and windy from the west. Find out more with me later on.
Well, it's just after 8 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
I'm Nana Akweer, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, we start this morning with the news of a recent poll, an Ipsos poll, which has revealed that a substantial drop in favourability for Labour follows their landslide election victory in July.
Yes, 52% think that Britain is moving in the wrong direction under Labour. Only 22% are in favour of the government's approach.
Well, Sir Keir remains the most popular politician with a 38% favourability rating, with Angela Rayner at a close second at 33%.
And Rachel Reeves is in third at 27%, and this comes as the government triggered Operation Early Dawn to deal with overcrowding in prisons.
Well, joining us now to go through all of this is our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Good morning to you, Olivia. It's been a fairly testing start to his premiership for Sir Keir Starmer, and it seems that the majority are not happy with the direction of travel. How disappointed do you think he'll be with this poll?
Well, it's not really surprising that Labour's honeymoon period has come to an end. Of course, all honeymoon periods do come to an end. But it isn't great for Keir Starmer. There are 38% of the country, according to this poll, think that he's doing a good job. They like him. But 38% think he's doing a bad job. So his net favourability rating is around 0. Now, that isn't that surprising because even though he won this enormous landslide victory at the election, his own popularity ratings were never that high. And actually, if you looked at the vote share in the election, Labour's share of the vote wasn't that good. So what Keir Starmer's looking at now in terms of popularity, just to put it into some context, is he's a little bit more popular than Boris Johnson was 2 months after the 2019 victory. But of course, Keir Starmer's victory is nearly 3 times the size, I think, of Boris Johnson's victory in 2019. He's less popular than Boris Johnson was at the start of the COVID pandemic. He's a lot less popular than Tony Blair was 2 months after his 1997 victory. And when you think, actually, in terms of size and majority, the two are pretty much equal. This isn't great news for Keir Starmer. It means that he doesn't have very much wiggle room to make the difficult decisions that he might want to make.
Why not? Because, I mean, he has this so-called supermajority. You know, he has stonking number of MPs in Parliament. He can get through anything. Who cares if the public opinion isn't behind him, frankly, if that's the way he wants to approach it?
Well, the problem for Keir Starmer is that if parliamentary terms are relatively short, and it won't take very long before we get back round to the local elections, which will be a big test of public opinion. Keir Starmer, as you say, I mean, he can push through some things quite quickly now in the next sort of year or so, but we will get round to those sort of mid-term elections, term borrowed from the US. And if Keir Starmer does very badly there, if the Conservatives start to get their act together a bit, Labour is very much hoping for 2 terms in office. As things are going at the moment, that doesn't look as certain as it did a couple of months ago. And also, don't forget, he has splits in his own party too. Angela Rayner, for example, his deputy, I would say that's a pretty unhealthy marriage going on between those two, an arranged marriage. She was voted in, she wasn't chosen by Keir Starmer. And if Keir Starmer's popularity is seen to be fading, and it definitely is, then you could get into a situation where Labour frontbenchers, more left-wing Labour frontbenchers perhaps, begin to move against him within the party.
Well, what about Operation Early Dawn? Because obviously we had the rioting, Keir Starmer acted very quickly, a load of people went to prison, but the prisons are full.
This is a really, really difficult one for Keir Starmer. The public, if you poll the public on prisoners, again and again and again, you see that people feel that prisoners should be treated quite harshly. People do not like the early release of prisoners. Keir Starmer has tried to frame this as the Conservative government left us in this huge mess. There is nothing we can do but release prisoners early. It's not gone down very well with the public. The public, interestingly, I would have thought perhaps Keir Starmer's response to the riots was pretty fierce, but actually some of the public think that he hasn't gone far enough, and very few think that he went too far. So it's going to be quite difficult for him if, this early doors thing happens, you get lots and lots of prisoners released, then you've got rioters being locked up. There won't be any appetite for those rioters to be released early, and so you just get into the same situation again. And of course, what happens, all journalists will be watching with a hawk to what happens to those prisoners who are being released over the next few weeks. If any of them go on to commit a serious crime quite soon, and the stats show that that is very, very likely, then Keir Starmer will have a real problem on his hands.
It's not just the... I was just trying to say that the Prison Officers Association... I can't speak this morning. The Prison Officers Association are blaming the Conservatives for this mess and saying it's an inherited thing. This isn't actually Keir Starmer's fault. It's not just Starmer that would be making that point. And they say that the Tories closed 20 public sector prisons, they didn't build enough new prisons, and they didn't create enough prison space, and people are serving longer sentences. So do you think people at home will look at it and think, I agree, actually, with that? This wasn't the problem that Starmer has... it's an inherited problem.
Well, there certainly is an element of that, but it's not just a practical thing. And I think the fact that, Keir Starmer, he can make the argument that the Conservatives left him in this mess and he has no choice but to do this. But his new prisons minister, James Timpson, who set up Timpson's, the rehabilitation chain shop, he philosophically, fundamentally believes that fewer people should be in prison. So I think that sort of undermines the point that the only reason that Keir Starmer is doing this is because he has no other practical option but to release prisoners early. So I wonder if that will filter through to people sitting at home. Obviously, most people won't know the political opinion specifically of the new Labour prisons minister, but there is certainly a philosophical belief within the Labour Party, this Labour Party, that prisoners shouldn't be in prison for as long as they are.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I personally bring back the death penalty for some of them, but that's another story. Olivia Utley, thank you very much.
Well, let's turn our attention to something a little bit less controversial. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They've just finished their tour of Colombia.
Now, they've been travelling around the South American nation. The Duchess of Sussex said that the couple's daughter, Lilibet, has finally found her voice at the age of 3.
Well, speaking at a panel event, Meghan said she was so proud that her daughter feels empowered.
Well, joining us now is GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Cameron, thank you very much for joining us. Good morning to you. So, how successful, on a scale of 1 to 10, did that trip to Colombia appear to be?
Well, Nana, I think it depends who you ask, to be honest. I mean, usually at this point for a foreign royal tour, I would be giving you the highlights and the lowlights, and then you guys probably make up your mind. To be honest, I'm finding it quite difficult to do that. The reason being is there was very limited independent coverage of the trip. There was one pool journalist, what we call a pool journalist, permitted to cover the royal couple on their visit, and then that kind of information would be shared with all the other journalists, which perhaps perhaps is to be expected, but it was very brief. There wasn't much in the way of independence, perhaps. And also the videos and the photographs we were getting from the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's team were very glossy. Meghan looked amazing. Harry looked amazing as well. All smiles, all lovely. But all the footage, as you might be able to hear, or not hear, I should say, was mute. So you couldn't hear a lot about what Prince Harry or indeed Meghan was saying, and it was all very edited. But given that, of course, it is their right, because they are no longer working members of the royal family, so they can do a royal tour, or not royal tour, whichever way you want to look at it, as they please. If they don't want to share all the footage with us, so be it. However, the question then is, what is their aim? And arguably the biggest news line for the whole 4-day tour was Prince Harry appearing to weigh in on the UK riots, where he says what happens online within a matter of minutes transfers to the streets. That is referring, of course, to online misinformation, a key theme of their trip. But that quote was picked up by another camera. It wasn't picked up by Harry and Meghan's camera, and it certainly wasn't included in the pool copy from the journalist accredited to cover their trip. But of course, I think that was probably one of their biggest successes for highlighting the dangers of online misinformation. They've visited several schools. You can see them visiting one of the schools here on your screens, talking about the dangers of online misinformation when it comes to children. They also had their own research from Archworld, their foundation as well, talking about the use of social media in Latin America. More people are using social media more than the global average, but I asked for details on that particular research and was not given it, so make of that what you will. But as you said in your link there, Meghan also attended an Afro Women panel where she talks about female empowerment, another huge theme of the trip, talking about her daughter, Princess Lilibet, finding her voice, and also said that it's up to the men, up to young boys to be taught to listen to women as well. So perhaps another key theme for that. And Prince Harry got an Invictus engagement into his military veterans Paralympic-style competition.
I also want to ask you about a report that I've seen in a couple of the papers this morning that Prince William would not want Harry at his coronation. Now, they're just reports and there's no named source. But given the fact that Prince William has been focusing so much on his father, who's been ill, his wife, who's been ill, looking after his kids, that might not come as a huge surprise. And obviously, there's no imminent coronation. But it seems to be, there's no reconciliation on the horizon between the brothers.
Yeah, this was a friend of Prince William reportedly speaking to the Sunday Times yesterday, because Prince Harry turns 40 years old in a couple of weeks. And a key theme of that particular article was that there is really not much of a relationship between Prince William and Harry. I mean, I know whenever I speak to people close to Prince William, the barriers go up when I mention his brother, the Duke of Sussex. They're not on speaking terms. It's understood the last time they did speak was at the Queen's funeral back in September 2022. And then, albeit it was very, very brief indeed. And as you say, Isabel, I think this is just a sense of Prince William having other priorities. The King is still receiving cancer treatment. The Princess of Wales, very similar situation. He has 3 young children to think about. He's the heir to the throne. To be honest, Prince Harry's just not a priority for him, which perhaps is very sad. But I suppose we'll just have to wait and see if time plays a part in any kind of reconciliation between the two brothers.
OK. All right, Cameron Walker, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this? Meghan Markle, Prince Harry?
I would say I totally understand why William and Kate have distanced themselves. That's all I would put in there, really. I'd probably do the same, given what's happened. And I also find it a bit strange, as Chris Akabusi was saying, a couple who wanted to get away, to live away from the scrutiny of the cameras, then doing so much on camera.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Doesn't really add up. I don't understand what their problem was with the royal family. It's very confusing, but I think it's a real shame. And I think Diana would be devastated to see what's happened to those boys who were so close.
It is a real shame. Well, keep your thoughts coming. gbnews.com/your say. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom.
A new report from the Children's Commissioner has revealed a child is strip-searched every 14 hours, with police failing to record an appropriate adult in almost half of recent searches. The report also revealed that 3,368 strip searches of children between January 2018 and June 2023 in England and Wales saw 457 over the last 12 months of that period. Black children 4 times more likely to be searched. That's a slight change from the period covering 2018 to 22, when they were 6 times more likely.
New figures show the number of children treated for eating disorders has doubled in 8 years. Experts are warning more patients than ever are having to wait up to a year for treatment. In the past school year alone, almost 11,000 children were diagnosed by the NHS.
And legal advisors are reporting that there's been a rise in the number of people leaving money to their pets, with 1 in 8 inquiring about how to include pets in their will. It follows celebrities including Oprah Winfrey and the late Karl Lagerfeld, who allegedly passed away, leaving £1.2 million to his beloved cat.
Oh, bless. Well, let's get an update with your weather.
It's a lot of money. But then, you know, that could just be small change for Karl Lagerfeld. You don't know what percentage of his overall inheritance was for his puss cat, but I think that's a bit
much, isn't it? A cat. Here you go, there's the money. What's the cat going to do with the money?
Yeah.
Would you leave your money to a pet?
Or a charity, if you don't want to pass it on to your family members, you know, what would you do? What's the alternative, I suppose, if it's not to family? Because some people aren't friendly with their family.
That's true,
alternatives.
That is true.
Lots of wet and windy weather on the way, I believe, so make the most of the sun while it lasts. Here's Amy Bakota with all the details.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A change in the weather on Monday for many of us. Still dry across far eastern parts, but there will be rain arriving from the west and it'll be turning windy. So the far southeast and eastern parts of England, still quite a dry and bright start to the day, but it's going to be cloudy and turning steadily wetter and windier as we head through the rest of Monday. Particularly going to be turning quite windy through the Irish Sea, gales arriving here through the afternoon, and we have a rain warning in force as well for parts of southwest Scotland. Under that cloud and rain, we're going to be seeing temperatures at best in the mid or high teens, but it will be still quite warm across southeast England. Heading through the rest of the day, we do still have some warm evening sunshine on offer for the southeast of England, but we already have some quite heavy showery rain moving into southwest England and to Wales as well. Very damp across Northern Ireland and north west England, and this is where we have the warning in force across southwest Scotland through this evening. Difficult driving conditions with that rain as well. A touch lighter across the northeast, but again, it's going to be a damp evening for most with that strong wind as well. Through the rest of Monday evening, that rain's going to continue to sink south and eastwards as we head through the evening, and it will turn a little bit clearer from the west, but still with some blustery showers moving in as well. Rain may take a little while to clear across the southeast and the far northeast of Scotland, and with those cloudier conditions and that strong wind, temperatures will be more in the mid-teens, a little bit higher than we've seen the last couple of days. Then through the rest of Tuesday, it'll be bright, sunny spells, but also some heavy showers too, particularly for parts of central and northern England, and Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland will be seeing heavy, blustery showers as well, particularly windy across the far northwest of Scotland too. Temperatures here, again, are in the mid or high teens and feeling quite cool, but the further southeast is still going to be feeling quite warm in that sun.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, there's 2 weeks left to get your entry into the £30,000 tax-free Great British Giveaway. It's our biggest prize that we've given away so far this year.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of money, but what would you do with the extra cash? Well, here are all the details that you need for your chance to make it yours.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. River. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, still to come, Kitty O'Brien bravely shares her story of a data breach that led to her domestic abuser receiving her location. That is next. This is GB News Breakfast.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Sarah, welcome to the show. Obviously, you work for a tobacco company, so a little caveat there to slip in. Nevertheless, it's no surprise that the illegal market is growing so much. When you look at the cost of cigarettes in Britain, huge amounts of duty, and oftentimes, of course, criminality always finds its way into the system. Tell us more about your report.
Absolutely. I mean, up to 90% of a packet of cigarettes is tax. And in the last year, there's been 2 tax increases that have equated more to the last 3 years combined. So now, if you're a roll-your-own smoker, a 30-gram pouch of roll-your-own will cost £22.50, but you can buy a counterfeit pack of 50 grams for £3. So there's a massive disparity. A lot of illegal tobacco is imported, but we do also have a problem in the UK with illegal tobacco factories. So in the last month, there's been an illegal tobacco factory in Gateshead, in Bury, busted, producing roll-your-own tobacco. And on the 12th of July this month, West Midlands gang illegal tobacco factory, the gang was found guilty of producing illegal tobacco, and that was more than £5 million lost tax revenue to the government. And actually, all of those people found guilty got a suspended sentence.
And how does that work? They're literally importing container loads of raw tobacco and packaging it up in factories in Britain, and they're using what appears to be British packaging illegally?
Yeah, some of it is branded packaging, so some of it isn't the kind of unbranded packaging we'd see on cigarettes and roll-your-own now, but it's relatively simple to reproduce, especially RYO. Our own pack swap data now shows that about 50% of the roll-your-own market is illegal tobacco.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, it's a national crisis and shame that 1 in 5 people in this country will be a victim of domestic abuse. Every 30 seconds, a call is made to the police.
Well, today we want to share just one story of a domestic violence advocate and her battle after her personal details were given to her abuser.
Well, joining us now in the studio to share her story is Kitty O'Brien. Welcome, Kitty, and thank you for bravely coming in and talking to us about what is a very difficult topic. Just first of all, just set the scene for us. Explain to us your story and how you ended up being put in harm's way, essentially, by the people who should have been protecting you.
Yeah, so I fled domestic violence and coercive control, and I was made homeless. So I actually went through a charity to get rehoused. And the police came, took statements, and they said, we're worried for your safety, so you need to apply for a non-molestation order. We can do that for you. So
Can I just explain to people who aren't aware of all of these things? So a non-molestation order is one step up from a restraining order, and it involves the power to arrest somebody. And this is what the police were advising you needed because they were worried about you.
Yeah.
OK.
Yeah. And it was I was like, oh, thank goodness. You know, this is protection. This is what I need. I felt like I can start my healing journey now, and I can start getting over some of the traumas I had been through. I didn't actually realise that this was the way that my ex was going to get my address. And so the police referred me to the National Centre of Domestic Violence. And yeah, that's how the breach happened. My address was left on the paperwork when I specifically asked them that it should be removed.
Now, the kind of paperwork that was coming to you, these are the forms that you have to fill in about all the abuse that has happened. Is that the form? And then they send one to the... Which papers were they?
So what happens is that the police take a statement and then you're referred, and then the National Centre of Domestic Violence ring you up and they take another statement, which gets passed on to solicitors. Then those court documents are formed, and a court processor or server then serves the documents to the person to say that these papers are being served on you, and then you just wait for a court hearing. And the backlog it's really long at the moment.
So your address was left on this paper. How did you know that they'd left the address? Because obviously you don't receive the papers. You receive your version and then they get theirs. How did you know that that's what had happened?
I actually thought the error laid with my solicitors. So I had this email from my solicitors, and basically the email dictated that my ex's solicitors wanted me to drop the non-molestation order, and they were confident they would win because my ex knew my address all along and he hadn't done anything. And I was just like, so what? And I remember it felt like a physical assault. I literally buckled over in the kitchen. I was struggling to breathe. And I was like, oh, my goodness, I can't believe my solicitors have done this to me. So I rung up, and I was quite frantic. And they were like, oh, hang on, we need to look into this. And they did, and then they came back and said, actually, it was with the National Centre of Domestic Violence.
Oh, my goodness. And so what do you do at this point? I mean, were you safe? What happened?
So a few incidents happened around my property. Like my car was vandalised, I had something thrown out the window, my garden was vandalised. But I didn't at that time have like any cameras up or anything, so I can only make presumptions that I feel it might have had something to do with my ex. But then, you know, the police said there wasn't enough evidence, and then I decided, I was like, I need to do something about this, like in a really big way. And also the way the National Centre of Domestic Violence treated me just really pushed me forward into fighting like I've never fought before.
Well, how did they treat you?
They initially blamed it on me and said it was they believed the error laid with me.
That you had handed your details?
That I hadn't said on the phone that I didn't want my address on the documents. Now, I know I did, and my argument was, when you're ringing somebody and asking for a statement, it's incredibly traumatising. You're reliving your abuse. I mean, at the time, I didn't realise when I found out, it actually resulted in a psychological injury. So I had adjustment disorder, which is the same as post-traumatic stress disorder. And you just can't function. You go into a state of shock, and you have to relive that and give your statement. You're not going to go, by the way, guys, can we make sure data protection is being looked after here? You just automatically presume. And I was never asked, do we keep your address on or not?
But surely they can't give your address away anyway. I mean, isn't that's got to be part of the rules anyway? So the fact that somebody left them on there... At what point did they admit that they had made that error?
Took them 17 months.
Wow.
My gosh.
I had to go to the ICO as well.
The ICO?
Which is the Information Commissioner's Office, and I have to say they were outstanding. I originally didn't think I had enough evidence to open a case with them because you have to show correspondence from each party. Now, the NCDV weren't... I don't know how to put this. I felt like they were ignoring my solicitors. I didn't really have any emails from the NCDV. And I was like, how do I evidence that we have been emailing them? Like, I haven't received anything back. So I sort of built myself a little mini case. I listed all the reasons why there was some huge errors here. I said 3 women are killed fortnightly from a current or former partner. It should not be up to a victim or very vulnerable person to make sure data protection policies are in place. They shouldn't have to... There should be policies and procedure when you're dealing with vulnerable people going through trauma, and I felt like that wasn't in place. And the ICO were fantastic, and they did actually open a case. It did get escalated because the NCDV weren't very forthcoming. And then the lead manager took over, and she was just amazing.
See, you know, when you hear of this is obviously one person who's pretty incompetent at the NCDV, who has made a huge error that has caused you a lot of worry and upset, but that's replicated all across the board on these sort of organisations as well. It's very, very disconcerting that they are not as effective as you would expect them to be.
Yeah, and the victim blaming.
Yeah.
You don't say, I mean, that's a trauma in itself.
It's just...
And I felt like when I was being ignored, I mean, that was the silent treatment is a big thing with psychological abuse. And I felt like I was getting the silent treatment from them. I felt like I was a little mistake, that they just wanted to go away. I mean, who takes 17 months to apologise? And this has dragged on for years. And I think if there is a data protection breach, you need to get that sorted as quickly as possible.
Well, I was going to ask, what is your advice to anyone who fits into any of these issues that you've had to deal with, trying to flee from domestic abuse, who to reach out for support, or if they feel like they've been wronged, where to turn? What would you say to somebody listening or watching?
So the ICO is the place to go if you think there's been a data protection breach, and they've really changed their mindset and attitude. They see you as people and not a case number, which is a completely different experience for me. And there are many different organisations and charities out there. You don't have to go through the NCDV. And I encourage anybody, not even just victims, but the police force, the NHS, and I'm saying those because they're all signposting people to the NCDV, to do your research. Just make an informed, educated decision.
Can you just remind us what the ICL stands for those that missed it earlier?
The Information Commissioner's Office. You can just type that in on Google. You can type in ICO data protection breach and it will come up with the forms you have to fill in. Like, it's a really user-friendly website.
Kitty, what changes would you like to see made so that these sort of things can't happen?
Yeah, so there's actually quite a list of changes. I made it very clear from the start that this had to be a national change, and Priti Patel has helped me immensely with that. And I went to the Ministry of Justice. Like, I literally took it to the top. And I really feel like there should be mandatory training with any organisation who deals with domestic abuse survivors or victims. You need to understand what that person's been through in order to help them. I think the process needs to be streamlined. It is so traumatising to have to give multiple statements over and over and over again. We need some sort of digital platform where you can upload your statement, and then with the correct consent, people can look at that, so you're not re-traumatising the person. Data protection audits, I really feel like they need to be on... For example, if you go to the police or the NHS, they have signposting documents. I think anybody on that signposting document from such a big organisation needs to be have a data protection audit done. Because the NCDV have been operating for many, many, many years. They were originally a charity, they're now not. They're a company, a community interest company. So I think that we really just need those audits done, and we need a lot of changes, especially in the family courts where...
Oh, gosh, that's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realise, but I read it in multiple newspapers, that judges have, on many occasions, given out the address of refugees.
Yeah.
That is a huge data protection breach. You've got all the families that are living there.
Sometimes it's not as though they haven't even read the cases either. They've got a lot to do, and I don't think they read through the notes thoroughly at all.
No,
I don't think they do.
And they're just like the police. They don't have to have mandatory training. It's compulsory whether they decide to do training for domestic abuse in cases.
But, I mean, you almost would expect judges not to need training to know that you don't read out the address of a refuge for women. Kitty, thank you for telling us. I hope it hasn't been traumatising for you talking to us this morning. Really important to get your story out. We should say that we reached out to the National Centre for Domestic Violence, and as Kitty was explaining, it used to be a charity but now a company, and this was part of their response. They said their first mistake in this case happened in 2021 when one of their experienced process servers mistakenly revealed the applicant's address to her abuser as he served a court order on him. Well, the process server had failed to detach the top page of the court paperwork, they explained, saying that a simple action he'd performed hundreds of times before without incident. They say we've reviewed our internal procedures and made changes to mitigate against future risk.
We apologised unreservedly for our original and subsequent mistakes, and we have paid full compensation for distress and professional counselling. We continue to receive over 100,000 calls from victims and survivors of abuse every year. Each call and every victim is of the utmost importance to us.
And we just wanted to say that if you or a loved one is being affected by any of these issues, the Samaritans are available 24/7, and the number is 116 123, or their website is samaritans.org.
Right, well, still to come, Paul Coit has sport. Stay tuned. This is next. This is GB News Breakfast.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK. The M1 South in Nottinghamshire this morning. A lane closed there due to a vehicle having its tyre changed. Junction 27 for Hucknall and Underwood to junction 26 for Nottingham and Eastwood. In Kent, the coastbound M20, a speed restriction due to Operation Brock in place. Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to junction 9 at Ashford. In Lancashire, the M55 westbound, the exit slip road closed due to a vehicle fire at junction 4 for Blackpool. And in Staffordshire, the M6 North, one lane is closed due to emergency repairs from junction 12 at Gailey to junction 13 for Stafford South. Also in London and St John's Wood, Wellington Road, the A41 is closed due to an accident around Circus Road. And in Tyne and Wear, the northbound western bypass, the A1, a lane closed due to a broken down vehicle there near to junction 77 for the Kenton Bar roundabout to junction 79 for Gosforth Park this morning. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Right, it's time to go through all the latest sports news. Paul Coit joins us now. Paul Coit, where do we start?
Chelsea 0, Manchester City
2.
2. No.
I've been listening.
See, you've got it, haven't you, Izzy?
No.
Yes.
You've got it.
This is the eye roll to the back of the head now. I'm looking at the internal workings of my
No, it's
brain.
not. You're just getting nervous because you got it wrong. That's all it was. Now, listen, Manchester City are the champions, of course. They beat Chelsea 2-0. Although Manchester City, we also know that there's those 115 charges, which is going to affect, may well affect them after that court case, which happens in September. So whether they're going to be the champions this year or it may be taken away from them, that's another story altogether.
What are the charges based on?
Oh, it's all to do with financial irregularities, shall we say that? Der Spiegel, the German magazine, had something to do with it. They were given these documents and tapes and things that nobody had ever seen before that involved, they'll say, that implicated Manchester City in wrongdoing when it comes to sponsorship and when it comes to the way they're dealing with their money, which is against the Premier League rules. The Premier League have now a charge against them, in fact 115 of them, which are finally going to be seen. This has been talking about for 2 years now.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I say 2. It's actually been even longer than that since they first came out. So anyway, that's another story altogether. But when it comes to the football, Manchester City beat Chelsea. Chelsea are another club that may have financial irregularities, but we're still not too sure. But they've got so many players. They have 40 players. And when you have 11 in a starting lineup and 20 that is in a first-team squad, 40 does sound a bit excessive.
So, and among the 20 that aren't making it to these games, you have some big names and they're not happy about being left out.
Raheem Sterling.
Tell us more.
Well, Raheem Sterling, I don't know whether... I honestly think that Raheem Sterling is probably going to leave Chelsea because the writing's kind of on the wall when he's left out. It's the first time he's not played in a opening games, I think, since the start of his career. And even he's not even in the squad. So there's Raheem there, and it's his people.
Is he getting on a bit, though? I've heard his name knocking about for a while.
27? 20?
That's quite old for a player.
I think he's 29.
That's quite
really
Did he deserve to be in the 20?
Well, that's up to Enzo Maresca, who's the manager, whether he thinks he's good enough to be able to play in the squad at the moment. He obviously says no, but... The weird thing is, most players, if you're not picked, you just, you take in your money and then you wait and then you try harder in training and maybe you get picked. But it's his people. it's just this thing. I've just never seen this before.
Just have your people call my people.
Yeah, people who need people are the luckiest people in the world. But anyway, it's his people, his representatives have said... They go on about how he's trained well and how he hopes to be playing and the new coach he gets on well with. Given his inclusion in the official club pre-match material this week, our expectation, this is Raheem Sterling's people, was that Raheem would be involved in this weekend's fixture in some capacity. As a camp, we've always had positive dialogue with, and you'd think there was a huge problem. It's just that he was left out of the game.
Maybe there is, though. We don't know. Maybe there's some other issues going on that we're not aware of.
Well, I think there's no smoke without fire in this situation. So something they're not happy with, and it looks like I would be surprised if he doesn't look for a move.
Isn't he? He's going to go somewhere else. He's been there for a long time. He's a bit long in the tooth as well.
Well, Brentford beat Crystal Palace 2-1, and see, then they've got more problems with players that are likely to move. Ivan Toney. Now, Ivan Toney... England player, and it seemed that as soon as he would become available, everybody would want him, but nobody seems to be coming in with like 80 to 100 million pounds.
Oh dear.
Price is dropping. He was left out of the Brentford side, and it was down to, so Thomas Frank said, the manager, down to transfer interest. So I don't know why you would leave someone else.
Is he a big player, this guy? Is he
absolutely.
A top player?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's just the thing is, it's just whether big clubs would, A, want to spend 80 to 100 million, and secondly, whether they need him. So it looks like he's going to go. And when you've got Mark Gahey, who's the Crystal Palace captain, he did play for Crystal Palace, even though Newcastle are in for him. So there's going to be some moves.
These are massive sums of money, though, aren't they,
They
really?
are
They're
massive
just
sums of
almost
money.
unimaginable sums. Imagine that coming into your bank every week.
Big game, Nana. There's a lot of money involved.
£300,000 a week, some of them are.
Some of them are earning sort of like your sort of money close. Some of them are.
Well,
not all of them, but some of them
Can't all be like me.
Leicester City versus Tottenham Hotspur tonight.
Are you going to be there?
The final game. I'm not going to go up to Leicester because I've got to be,
it's away.
obviously, it's away, and I've got to be up early in the morning. But also there's a move there. So Oliver Skipp, who plays for Spurs, looks like he's going to be heading for Leicester. So it may be a case of that he goes up on the Spurs coach and then stays there.
So packs his suitcase.
8 o'clock kick-off tonight, that one.
8 o'clock kick-off.
Good stuff.
A little bit about the cricket, the 100, which is the tournament which has gone on. Oval Invincibles win it again. So they're not called Invincibles for nothing. They won that, beat Southern Brave. London Spirit won the women's 100 as well. And the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the MCG, this is something that's going to happen. I know I'm getting a bit early with this. 2027 is the 150th anniversary of the first test between England and Australia.
And how are they going to mark it?
Well, they're going to play a game.
Oh, well,
that's it. They'll probably have a few fireworks.
It'll be a win, isn't it? We want
fireworks as well. The first game, Australia won by 45 runs. The 100th anniversary in 1977, Australia won by 45 runs.
Well,
Same thing happened twice, so who knows what's going to happen
OK.
in 2027.
It's been a pleasure, Coity. Glad to hear you.
I like to give my fixtures maybe 2 years, 3 years early.
I'll get that in the diary.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Quite right. Still to come, Dawn Neeson and Chris Akabusi running us through what's making the news. That's next. This is GB News Breakfast.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, almost 70% of 18 to 25-year-olds, we don't know whether that's men or women, but they say that women shouldn't breastfeed in public. 19% would even go as far as labelling it disgusting.
Well, only a quarter of Brits say that women shouldn't have to cover up when they're breastfeeding. So clearly there is a big debate here and one to get to the bottom of. And to do so, we're joined by parenting journalist Annette Kellu. Really good to see you this morning, Annette.
Really good to see you.
Why is this stigma still existing in our society?
I think we've got a case here going on of double standards. I don't know about you, but I live near a park, OK? One little hint of sun, the men get completely naked. Honestly, you've never seen anything like it. The bodies are out, all different shapes and sizes. So why is it not OK for a woman to feed her baby? You know, we've got this whole thing. They're OK to be naked doing what they want. Why can't a woman just feed her baby? Why is it shameful in 2024? And it's interesting what you say about the 18 to 25-year-olds, because I really want to know, are they men or women? Because I feel like they'd be men.
I was going to say, have you got a hunch? Have you got a suspicion?
Yes, I have. And I think as well, they're thinking of them as sexy time, you know? And I feel like they're not... Well, maybe that's because they're bombarded with images and they see things like that they're seeing it in that context. But it's really not. It's feeding the baby. It's simple. Shouldn't be shameful.
But do you think for men it's like they can't see the difference? There's so much porn in society, isn't there, that breasts are sexualised and seen as this sexual object and not actually for their main primary purpose, which is actually feeding a child.
Immediate association.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, they can't.
And you can't see that they could have two functions.
Absolutely. And to them as well, I feel like they see it, and on the other side of it, they think like, ooh, mummy, and that brings up weird feelings for them, maybe.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got Dawn Neeson and Chris Akabusi taking one last look at what is in the papers for us this morning. And Chris, we want to start with the story on the front of the Telegraph, which is talking about trade unions being free to strike even if most of their members do not vote for it.
Yeah, this is apparently going to upturn the 2016 Trade Union Act by Lord Cameron. And that stated basically that 50% of the members had to be present and 50% of the members had to vote for any strike action. The current Labour government, who are in some way in hock to the trade unions, I'm thinking about reversing this. Now, this comes on the back of some massive pay deals to the medical profession and train drivers. And I notice in the paper that it says that it can't be the same group, but there are a group of train drivers and doctors and other NHS people who want to go on strike again. So, you know, all of a sudden they put themselves out, you know, to be... ridiculous. You know, he who pays the piper calls a tune. So this is now raving, as you said in the Daily Telegraph, about the rise and wherefores and warning about the disaster about to happen.
But this isn't even a good idea, is it? If you reduce the ratio of agreement for strike, I mean, Dawn, this is not a good plan.
No,
surely.
no, of course it isn't. It really isn't, because it just dumbs everything down and gives people more problems with it. And Chris is right. Sort of like the ASLEF union, who have had this settled thanks to Labour. So you've got look. I'm not having a go at train drivers, right? But you've got £70,000, the average train driver on a 4-day working week. Meanwhile, they're taking money away from the pensioners, who are on £11,500 a year. Come on, in what world does this make sense? But no, actually making it easier to go on strike is just... The thing is, the problem we've got now, Nana, with all of this, is the Labour have got such a huge majority. They can do what they want.
But you would at least want to hear some dissent from the Conservative Party, but they're still internalising and navel-gazing. We want... And even where are the Liberal Democrats in all this? They've got a load of...
Well, at least they've come out in unison saying that, the treatment
union
of the OA...
and unison.
Yeah. Well, unison is a union.
Exactly, that's our point.
Right. But they are, united in their view on the OAP treatment and this winter fuel allowance, aren't they? And it's kind of brought them all together. They can't agree on anything else. They agree
on one thing they agreed on.
Dawn, let's talk about this story. It caught my eye, front of the Times, that the parcel courier is actually now a more familiar face than the postie.
Yeah, I know. It's because postal deliveries are parcel deliveries. We're all getting more and more are more frequent than letters from the Royal Mail. So we actually now know the drivers who deliver our parcels better than we know our local postie. I mean, back in the day when I was a kid, you knew the postie by name. You'd say hello every day. They would literally walk around the street. And now I actually just stand and chat football with the parcel delivery bloke because I know them more. So it's just, and that's the basic story is that the Royal Mail is what was the actual figure? It's Royal Mail says it's now delivering half as many letters as it did 10 years ago.
I think this is probably something that happens out in the town, because in the shires, out in the sticks, you still know you're a postie, and I'm going to mention the C word, but come Christmas...
Oh, no.
My postman will definitely get a Crimbo gift.
Aww.
The courier...
Well, yeah.
Well, I think there's different couriers, because I get all, 4 or 5 of them for my 4 or 5 parcels a week that I get. Same postie.
Yeah.
I know the postie.
Exactly.
But my postie generally is bringing, junk mail these days.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I can't remember the last time I actually got anything through the post.
Taxes?
I always leave something... I always leave a nice present for the bin men.
Yes, absolutely.
Because then if you need something done, they'll...
See, I don't know the bin men at all, because we live in a block of flats, so the bin men are just an anonymous sort of thing that happens in the basement somewhere.
So I know your bin man, and you've got to know your bin man.
You know the bin man, yeah.
My granddad used to be a bin man, so back in the day, I did know them.
And did he look forward to Christmas for presents from the punters, or not really?
I don't remember talking about it, to be honest with you.
Did he like the job?
Well,
or was it rubbish?
He just come up for the fridge. He just come up for the end of the fridge. That was actually quite good.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Just off the cuff right there.
Available next August in Edinburgh.
Right, let's talk about power ballads, shall we? Whether or not you think that... Well, are you a power ballad in the shower?
No, you do not want to hear in the shower.
No. You sing?
Strangle cats and all sorts of stuff. I fancy myself in the shower, so I'm giving it rooty too. But no, you don't.
So what's the story?
The story, apparently, but there's loads of intentional downplayers, he says that we may have a musical superpower, and that it's a remarkable amount of people have got a great pitch in the shower, but it's some sort of... So, anyway, Matt Evans of the University of California, they did some sort of results and to find out that actually some people are very tuneful in the shower. And you know those songs that you've got resonating in your head, you might catch a little ballad.
Yeah.
Well, they call it an earworm. Is that...
it's a phrase.
Yeah. I've never heard of that.
I've never heard it, so I saw it an earworm. But it's one of those that resonates in your head. But sometimes, if you've got it in your head, you actually have got the perfect pitch when it comes out.
I think it's the steam in the shower warms up your vocal cords, and also you're uninhibited, aren't you? Because you're there in the nud, having the time of your life. Nobody knows what you're doing.
And
the acoustics are good, and so I'm not surprised you're pitch perfect. perfect in the shower.
Exactly.
Might have to start recording my my vocals. That's how I do.
Sad, Isabel.
You can imagine the LP coming out. Yeah.
Isabel Webster.
Isabel Webster.
And her latest
Check out
song.
the vocals.
I mean, just to give some context, I'm banned from singing in the car by my husband, so I've got some way before I get a #1 hit.
What about this final one then?
Yeah.
Brits get fit for sunbed war. Britain holidays makers are putting themselves through fitness routines to secure the best poolside.
This sounds like your kind of story.
And this is a typical tabloid silly season. It's August. Sunbed stories always work for the tabloids. And this is a survey by Asda Travel Insurance, and they have done asking how fit you get for your holidays. So, look, we'll go on diets, bikini, body ready, etc., etc. But this is going on a diet and going on a fitness regime so you can get to those sunbeds before everybody else. And evidently, 39% of us, admit to exercising before our getaway so we can be first to nab that prime spot and, more importantly, beat the Germans, who are equally competitive, evidently.
I have to say, just having kids, you know, that means that you're up early, and I had no problem bagging a sunbed on this trip because we're up from like 6:30.
I would rather poke my eyes out than take part in this. Lying by a pool all day would bore me silly.
Yeah.
But people also admit to bribing pool and hotel staff to get that sunbed.
But no, that you get all these all-you-can-eat holidays, don't you? All you can eat, all you can drink.
All you can eat,
Yeah, and so I went on one in Turkey, and I came back 7 pounds heavier.
Well, that's right.
Absolutely. Just stacked it on.
You take the pictures at the beginning of the holiday. So at the beginning of the holiday, I took my pictures, I took them all, and then at the end, then there was one towards the end where I was like, that doesn't look like the same girl.
This wasn't the holiday where you were doing yoga in that gorgeous white room.
You noticed that was like at the end of the holiday, so my belly was out a little bit.
Right, well, I need to look up these yoga pictures. I've been hearing so much about them. I'll be checking those out. But
it's painful. It really is painful.
Dawn, Chris, thank you both. It's been a pleasure. Time now to get a check on the weather. It's going to be wet and windy, I think, this week.
Typical.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A change in the weather on Monday for many of us. Still dry across far eastern parts, but there will be rain arriving from the west and it'll be turning windy. So the far southeast and eastern parts of England, still quite a dry and bright start to the day, but it's going to be cloudy and turning steadily wetter and windier as we head through the rest of Monday. Particularly going to be turning quite windy through the Irish Sea, gales arriving here through the afternoon, and we have a rain warning in force as well for parts of southwest Scotland. Under that cloud and rain, we're going to be seeing temperatures at best in the mid or high teens, but it will be still quite warm across southeast England. Heading through the rest of the day, we do still have some warm evening sunshine on offer for the southeast of England, but we already have some quite heavy showery rain moving into southwest England and to Wales as well. Very damp across Northern Ireland and north west England, and this is where we have the warning in force across southwest Scotland through this evening. Difficult driving conditions with that rain as well. A touch lighter across the northeast, but again it's going to be a damp evening for most with that strong wind as well. Through the rest of Monday evening, that rain's going to continue to sink south and eastwards as we head through the evening, and it will turn a little bit clearer from the west, but still with some blustery showers moving in as well. Rain may take a little while to clear across the southeast and the far northeast of Scotland, and with those cloudier conditions and that strong wind, temperatures will be more in the mid-teens, a little bit higher than we've seen the last couple of days. Then through the rest of Tuesday, it'll be bright, sunny spells, but also some heavy showers too, particularly for parts of central and northern England, and Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland will be seeing heavy, blustery showers as well, particularly windy across the far northwest of Scotland too. Temperatures here, again, are in the mid or high teens and feeling quite cool, but the further southeast is still going to be feeling quite warm in that sun.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Oh, good morning, I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK this Monday morning. In Nottinghamshire, the southbound M1, a lane is closed due to a vehicle having its tyre changed. Junction 27 for Hopwell and Underwood to junction 26 for Nottingham and Eastwood. In Kent, the coastbound M20, a speed restriction due to Operation Brock in place. Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to junction 9 in Ashford. Also on the coastbound M20 in Kent, we've got one lane closed due to a broken down vehicle from the M25 at the Swanley interchange to junction 2 for the A20. And in Lancashire, the M55 westbound, everything's looking a lot better now following that earlier vehicle fire at junction 4 for Blackpool. And in London, in Limehouse, the Rotherhithe Tunnel, all now open between Rotherhithe and Limehouse. And at Tyne and Wear, the Western Bypass, the A1 North, all clear following that broken down vehicle near junction 77 for the Kenton Bar roundabout to junction 79 at Gosforth Park.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Love lost for Labour. A drop in popularity for Starmer's cabinet as more than half think Britain is moving in the wrong direction.
As the government is facing a backlash over their bid to cut winter fuel payments.
Operation Early Dawn launches today as an emergency measure to tackle overcrowding in prisons.
Starmer can't catch a break as even the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky puts the knife in, telling the world Britain's support is slowing down.
Stateside, Kamala Harris makes her final campaign stops in Pennsylvania before the Democratic National Convention starts tonight.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle depart Colombia, but the verdict is out on whether their public tour was a success.
And the nation bids farewell to one of the UK's only Stilton cheese creameries as Tuxford and Tebbot in Melton Mowbray closes for good.
Some sunshine around today, but it will be turning wet and windy from the west. Find out more with me later on.
It's just after 9 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
I'm Nana Aquia, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, it's been a rough start to the week for the government, with a new Ipsos poll revealing a substantial drop in favourability for Labour following their landslide election victory in July.
52% think that Britain is moving in the wrong direction under Labour, with only 22% in favour of the government's approach.
Sir Keir remains the most popular politician, though, with a 38% favourability rating, with Angela Rayner at a close second at 33%.
and Rachel Reeves in third at 27%. And this comes as the government triggered Operation Early Dawn to deal with the overcrowding in prisons.
Well, let's discuss all of this with our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Good morning to you, Olivia. And let's discuss, first of all, I suppose some of the difficult challenges that Starmer's faced so early on in his premiership. You do expect that bounce, especially after the kind of landslide that he had and a honeymoon period. But it's been pretty short for him, hasn't it?
It's been very short for him. I mean, I'm sure that he hoped with the July election recess almost following immediately that he would get to relax a little bit. And I know that he organised a holiday with his family in Europe, which he had to cancel at the last minute. It has been a rocky start with the riots, with the situation escalating in Iran. He's been trying to help de-escalate that, but particularly what's been happening at home. It feels like the end of his honeymoon period now. His favourability ratings have gone down to net zero, which is about the same as it was during the election campaign. Keir Starmer has actually always struggled a little bit with personal popularity ratings, even when the Labour Party has been very popular indeed, and of course they won this huge landslide. Starmer himself normally tailed a little bit behind the party. Now, of course, there is a question of how much does this matter. They do have this enormous majority, almost the same as Blair in 1997, and they will be in power for 5 years. So you could argue that Keir Starmer can push through whatever he wants, and who cares whether he's unpopular with the public. The issue is the Labour Party itself, the parliamentary party, sniffs out weakness, just like the Conservative Party did before it. And if it looks as though Keir Starmer's ratings are in freefall, which I should say I don't think it does look like that yet, but you could see a situation where someone like Angela Rayner begins to move against the Prime Minister. So that might be what Keir Starmer is a little bit worried about for now. Also, his response to the riots, on the whole, the public seem relatively happy with it, but it is obviously an ongoing situation. And if this operation, the prisons operation, releasing people from prisons early, gets into full swing, you could get into a situation where these rioters who were locked up by Starmer so decisively right at the beginning end up being released early, which could undermine all the good work that he's done there and further pull him down in the ratings.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a bit more in just a moment. Mark White standing by for that. But I just want to ask you, I suppose, about where taxation will affect his popularity, because we know that at the moment they're agreeing pay deals left, right and centre. We've got an all-time high on what we're paying already in our taxes. And we're talking about taking away some of the benefits for OAPs. All of this is, quite controversial.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Starmer and Rachel Reeves have really painted themselves into a corner here. They said over and over again during the election campaign that they wouldn't be raising taxes for working people, so income tax, national insurance or VAT. But they have got to find some money from somewhere. There are going to be these very big public sector pay rises, which have, for now, seemed to have put an end to the strikes and, on the whole, seem pretty popular with the public. But where are they going to find the money from? At the moment, the public aren't happy at all with public sector cuts. And there were some questions over the election campaign over whether you could end up in a situation where a Labour government brings in a new version of austerity, because they have made it so clear that they won't cut any taxes, and yet they need to find so much money. What exactly are they going to do? I think we can expect to see capital gains tax rise. Of course, we're having the private schools VAT exemption removed come September, rise in inheritance tax as well. All of this will be very unpopular with the public.
Olivia Utley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, an emergency operation called Operation Early Dawn has been launched by the government this morning. Now, the plan is in place to avoid overcrowding in prisons, and it's been activated after the recent riots saw a rise in prison sentences handed out.
Well, joining us to discuss this some more is our Home and Security editor, Mark White. And, Mark, we were talking about this with Olivia a little bit earlier, and we'll get into it all with you some more now. But I think it also exposes, I guess, a philosophical question, because we've got the Prisons Minister, Mr Timpson, who we all know is really keen on rehabilitation and believes that people are better out of jail than in jail. Is this actually quite a good excuse for the Labour government to clear out some spaces in the jails? That's probably for a later debate, but certainly it will be raising some eyebrows, won't it, when you've got someone who's so clearly in favour of doing this?
Well, we are already going to see that programme in action on the 10th of September, SDS 40, which is basically a 40% reduction in your time served will come into place, and that will free up thousands of more spaces in prison. Now, that system is meant to deal with the overcrowding, with predictions that it will be well over capacity within the next year or two. So they had to come up with, they would say, tough choices, and the tough choice that they've decided to implement is one where normally if you're sent to prison at halfway point through your prison sentence, you're allowed to serve the remainder of your prison term on probation. Well, now, for those that are serving sentences of 4 years or less, they'll be out at 40% through their sentence. But at the moment, we have a more immediate crisis, and that's partly exacerbated by the fact that we're locking up so many people after the riots, where we've reached 88,000 in the prison population, and they need to do something urgently. So their solution in the north of England, it's not yet in the south, is to hold people they arrest in prison cells to try to allow the courts to process and the prison system itself to deal with people and release people as they do all the time as well, to free up more spaces.
Well, have they got any plans to build more prisons? Because I'm just wondering, this is obviously an ongoing situation. Apparently the Conservative government actually left money for prison building because they didn't build any. So are they planning to build prisons, and how quickly can they do this? Because you would think that they can do that quite quickly.
Yeah, they are making more prison spaces available, and they are redeveloping sites with a view to doing that. Longer term, will it be the function of this particular government to try and reduce prison places overall? Well, you might say with the current prisons minister that might well be a long-term strategy, and certainly with this process that's going to come into play on the 10th of September, that could be the first trial run as to whether this actually works. But just to add, you know, the best laid plans might well be scuppered by the first people they release going on to carry out some pretty serious offences. That will undoubtedly happen.
Yes.
Because the vast majority of people that are released from prison are what they call recidivists. They reoffend and reoffend regularly.
Well, I was just going to ask as well, they are changing planning laws so to get rid of the NIMBYism, even though many in their cabinet turned out to be exactly that. Do you think that part of it was a calculated sort of view of trying to maybe build prisons to stop people objecting to where they will be?
Well, I think they know anyway, just because of prison populations and forecasts, that we are going to be something like 5,000 or 6,000 more in capacity that is required in the years ahead. So they have to come up with something fairly radical, and that's either to build more prisons, which they are doing, or to actually come up with a solution that ensures fewer people are going to prison, which, for the time being, they seem to be doing as well.
And Mark, will we only learn about the sort of prisoners that they've released if something bad happens? Or, you know, when are we likely to find out what category, what crimes?
Yeah.
You know, because if you've got people who have committed terrible crimes being let out early to make way for people who've put out tweets, there's going to be a bit of a backlash, isn't there?
Yeah, but what they say, of course, is that people that have been sent to prison for more than 4 years, and terrorists and, you know, sexual offenders and the like, won't be included in this scheme to release them early. However, that doesn't really take into account all those who are really quite violent people that are maybe serving 2 or 3 or whatever years in prison. They are repeat offenders, they are drug dealers, they're some way maybe feeding drug habits and actually carrying out some quite nasty and violent crimes to feed those habits. So I think, without doubt, it's only a matter of time when people are released from prison, they offend, because most of the people we see who are before the courts charged with very serious offences have previous convictions. So without a doubt, we'll see some of those released offending. Quite how serious it will be and when we'll get to hear about it, I don't know.
OK, thank you very much. You think they could do some sort of community service or something for people who've posted bad tweets?
Long since said that. There's so much litter that needs clearing up, graffiti. If you're going to get let out early, get them doing something useful.
Or the people they've arrested, instead of arresting these people for tweets and things like that, get them to do some sort of litter picking and things like that.
Yeah, there have been lots of views on that this morning. Keep them coming in, gbnews.com/your say.
Right.
Now, quick reminder about Great British Giveaway.
2 weeks left to get your entry in. £30,000, our Great British Giveaway, the biggest prize we've ever given away so far this year.
So what would you do with that cash? Lots of people talking about whether they would leave it for their pets in their will. Whatever floats your boat, here are all the details you need for a chance to make it yours.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British Giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GB News Great British Giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am, having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're going to be talking about stinky cheese, the best sort.
Stilton, yes, a cheese creamery is shutting down after hundreds of years of history.
Yeah, we're going to have more on that just after this. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Bad news for liberal mothers who want to score virtue points by transitioning their kids, Lewis.
You know, this
Tell us what it is.
Is a California dad is granted full custody of 4-year-old son after boy's mom tried to raise the child non-binary.
It's almost like cult-like behaviour. You've got the mother transitioning and then the transitioning the son as well. It's interesting that, you know, it's almost like a religion. You get, you know, if you're a Christian, your kids are probably going to be Christian. If you're, you know, Hindu, your kids are probably going to be Hindu. And if you're transgender, your kids are probably going to be transgender.
There's absolutely a causation there. We see plenty of times in videos. This is exactly it. And also we see the children of celebrities and people in particularly sort of liberal environments. It doesn't happen in some village in Indonesia or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, there's no such thing as a trans child. There's no such thing as non-binary. What there is are people with mental health issues and parents who want a virtual signal and also want to brainwash their children. This is an egregious example of that, where she was basically taking him to Disneyland, but he couldn't get on a ride unless he wore princess shoes. I mean, really evil, horrible stuff. You know, forced to wear a dress on his birthday. Just really nasty stuff. Now, here's the thing. You talk about the court going to him. No, that's not what happened. He took 800 pages of documentary evidence. He took 8 hours of police body camera footage showing this mental behaviour from the mother. And guess what? The courts ruled that the mum got him. They ruled against him. The only reason that he got custody of his child is because, thank God, a child protective services officer randomly got involved, looked into it themselves, and that's how he eventually got custody of the child. So the courts in America are utterly captured.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 15 minutes after 9 o'clock. One of the last Stilton cheesemakers is at risk of closing after its parent company announced that it may stop production.
Yeah, this is Tuxford and Tebbit in Melton Mowbray. They've been making the speciality cheese since the 18th century, but without a buyer to take it over, it could close imminently.
Well, our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has the story from Leicestershire.
Stilton is one of Britain's best-loved foods. The salty cheese with blue centre can only be made in the East Midlands, but is exported around the world. Richard is head cheesemaker at Longclawson Dairy.
This has got a nice, even bluing radiating from the centre of the cheese all the way to the outside. It's got an open, flaky texture. This cheese will break down to make a superb Stilton.
Over 10 years, the number of Stilton makers has halved, with the market shrinking by 15%. In June, Danish food giant Arla announced a proposal to cease production at its site in Melton Mowbray. Tuxford and Tebbit is the last Stilton cheesemaker in the town, putting 60 jobs at risk. Melton MP Edward Arger says the loss would hurt the area.
First of all, the key priority must be to support the people who are affected by Arla's announcement, the employees here at Tuxford and Tebbit. Second thing is, Stilton is a fantastic product. We've got to keep championing it. We've got to recognise there are other amazing Stilton producers out there. We've got to get behind them. We've got to champion and be proud of this iconic British product.
Stilton is a speciality food. Many people only eat it at Christmas. But with rising costs and price, some are buying it even less.
Obviously, it is quite expensive, but we don't have it that often that we can't afford it.
Pretty much any time of the week, there is always Stilton at our home.
If we want to buy some for a special occasion, then we'll buy it.
As a protected food, Stilton can't be changed or made elsewhere, like champagne in France. Despite that, the king of English cheese is coming under threat.
These coats are developing really nice, and we've got this.
Bill Mathison is managing director at Longclawson Dairy.
On a personal level, we're very positive about what's happening with Stilton. I think if you take an industry level, what we've been seeing is a decline in Stilton. Our mission as a business is to make sure that what we're doing is broadening out Stilton usage beyond the cheese board, because only 20% of households ever have a cheese board. So we're looking at putting it in burgers, so we've got burger mouths, we're putting it in snacking.
The complete disappearance of Stilton is unlikely. Yet every vanishing cheesemaker increases uncertainty. Will Hollis, GB News in Melton Mowbray.
Right, well, this week, thousands are travelling to Chicago for the 2024 Democratic National Convention.
That's as Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will formally accept their leadership nominations ahead of November's crucial vote.
Well, earlier we spoke to our US political correspondent Steve Edgington, reporting live from Washington, D.C.
The Democratic Convention opens today with the theme of For the People. The next few days will be the chance for the Democrats to choose officially their presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, and her vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz. This is a key test for Harris. She's going to lay out her plans for America to the American people, properly introducing herself on the national stage ahead of the election in November. This is an opportunity for Harris to really take control of the media narrative over the next few days. She's already enjoyed an opinion poll bump since announcing her candidacy for the Democratic Party. Many in the Democrats breathed a sigh of relief when President Joe Biden decided not to run for the president again in November. And many see Kamala Harris as a new lease of life, a younger candidate with a bit more charisma than President Biden. Already the DNC has been marred by protests from pro-Palestine protesters last night. An event was disrupted by protesters. The convention, which is being held in Chicago, has already seen major pro-Palestine protests happen. And throughout the next 3 days, we will expect many more protests to continue. Kamala Harris has already started talking about various policies for her presidency if she wins in November, including a $6,000 child tax credit and a sort of help to buy scheme for first-time buyers, which would help them with about $25,000 of government funding. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has accused Kamala Harris of being communistic. She has announced a kind of price control policy to try and tackle inflation. And this has been a major problem under the Biden-Harris administration, where food prices have risen by 21%. And many Americans blame President Biden and Vice President Harris for this incredible rise in inflation on basic goods like food and groceries. So this week really is an opportunity for Harris to try and tackle some of her weak spots, not just inflation, but also immigration. She was appointed in 2021 as President Biden's so-called border czar. That's certainly what was reported at the time, though the Democrats are trying to reverse on that language at the moment. And under the Biden-Harris administration, millions of illegal migrants have entered the United States through their southern border with Mexico. And this is another major weakness that Harris faces that she must address ahead of November. So these are the major issues that the candidate will be talking about. The next few days, we will see more of Harris. We'll be introduced to her on the sort of national stage, and she will set out her major pitch for the candidacy ahead of November on Wednesday, when she accepts the nomination with a major speech.
Some breaking news to bring you. We're getting reports from the Reuters news agency of an incident about a mile off the coast of Palermo in Sicily, where a sailboat 50 metres long has sunk. We understand that a number of people from that boat are missing, 7 of them. This was a British-flagged sailing boat. 15 people, including a child, have been successfully rescued after a whirlwind and rough seas hit the area earlier this morning. On board the boat were 2 Anglo-French citizens, an Irish national, a New Zealander and a Sri Lankan. The rest were British. We're told that all of those who are rescued are in a stable condition, but 7 remain missing. I think there's going to be a big story throughout the day, and we will keep a close eye on it for you here at GB News.
Well, it's 23 minutes after 9 o'clock. Britain's newsroom is coming up next. Bev Turner and Dawn Neeson are here to tell us what's coming up. What's coming up?
Well, we're obviously going to have a lot more on that breaking story, finding out as much as we can about what's happened. And Bev, you've just come back from Sicily.
I've just come back from Sicily.
We'll be able to
I was
talk
just
to
saying, I was on a boat off the coast of Sicily just a few weeks ago. So we're going to be finding out exactly what's happened there. We've got an all-female table this morning. This is rather lovely, isn't it?
Team girl on a Monday morning.
Team girl. And we're going to be talking about Labour's desire to make misogyny a terrorist offence. How do you even begin to police people's thoughts?
That's what it is, isn't it? And how do you define it? What is extreme misogyny? Yvette Cooper herself couldn't answer that question all weekend, so very keen for someone to actually tell us what it is.
And also the funniest joke from the Edinburgh Fringe, but you're going to have to stay tuned to find out what it is.
There's a little
officially
cliffhanger.
The funniest joke.
Yeah, they're always sort of not that funny, are they? We're looking forward to it.
Bev laughed. Bev did laugh, to be fair.
It was your delivery.
Thanks very much. They'll be up bright and early for you after this, and we'll be back tomorrow from 6. Thank you. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. A change in the weather on Monday for many of us. Still dry across far eastern parts, but there will be rain arriving from the west and it'll be turning windy. So the far southeast and eastern parts of England, still quite a dry and bright start to the day, but it's going to be cloudy and turning steadily wetter and windier as we head through the rest of Monday. Particularly going to be turning quite windy through the Irish Sea, gales arriving here through the afternoon, and we have a rain warning in force as well for parts of southwest Scotland. Under that cloud and rain, we're going to be seeing temperatures at best in the mid or high teens, but it will be still quite warm across southeast England. Heading through the rest of the day, we do still have some warm evening sunshine on offer for the southeast of England, but we already have some quite heavy showery rain moving into southwest England and to Wales as well. Very damp across Northern Ireland and north west England, and this is where we have the warning in force across southwest Scotland through this evening. Difficult driving conditions with that rain as well. A touch lighter across the northeast, but again it's going to be a damp evening for most with that strong wind as well. Through the rest of Monday evening, that rain's going to continue to sink south and eastwards as we head through the evening, and it will turn a little bit clearer from the west, but still with some blustery showers moving in as well. Rain may take a little while to clear across the southeast and the far northeast of Scotland, and with those cloudier conditions and that strong wind, temperatures will be more in the mid-teens, a little bit higher than we've seen the last couple of days. Then through the rest of Tuesday, it'll be bright, sunny spells, but also some heavy showers too, particularly for parts of central and northern England. And Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland will be seeing heavy, blustery showers as well, particularly windy across the far northwest